Greetings and salutations, people of the world. This is the one and only C.R. Martin, and this is quite different from what I usually do live. So consider it a live stream slash podcast of a sort. So, in the sense that we'll be taking a single subject slash topic and discuss it at length. And by we, I of course mean myself and a guest of honor. And tonight's guest of honor is someone that I'm pretty sure the Amazing World of Gumball community will be familiar with. And for those of you who aren't, allow me to introduce to you Mattalamode. Say hi to the people.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm trying. I wish I had a little opening salvo prepared because I didn't think about that, but I am present and I will try to do my best. To those who don't know me, I have been writing about the show for a couple of years now, since 2016. Started with the code, and it's been going pretty steady, you know.
Yep.
Just kind of hanging out, writing about the show, having a good time.
That is correct. Oh, Shadow Streak is streaming on Twitch. Okay.
Competition.
Well, not really. He's streaming on Twitch. I'm streaming exclusively on YouTube just for tonight. This particular stream. Shit, I'm a little too quiet. Okay. All right. Let me raise it up. Let me crank up the volume a bit.
Guys, this is what live stuff looks like. By the way, stuff's always happening, you know.
Okay. All right. Like I said, this stream is exclusively on YouTube. As much as I hate this website's guts, I don't really see a point in streaming non-gaming related content over on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
His voice is higher than imagined.
Oh no.
Interesting. Okay, so this is how this discussion is going to go. We actually have a Google Docs of a bunch of topics we want to discuss, and we do want to keep things organized. So at least I do. I'm pretty sure Matt does, but yeah.
Yeah.
So we will be going through these by order of how they appear in the document. So, yeah, the Amazing World of Gumball.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I need to state what a big deal this show is to me, and I'm pretty sure it's as big a deal to Matt as it is to me.
Oh, definitely. It's a huge deal to me. I mean, like, I'm pursuing comedy because of the show, which is probably the dumbest thing I've ever done. But, like, you know, I'm blaming them for it, obviously. So, you know.
Blaming?
Well, I mean, if I'm successful, I will celebrate the fact. If I'm not, I will blame it and erase it from my mind, probably.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say it's all that bad.
Oh, man, it's a fantastic show. I love it to death.
Especially not when Ben Bokley himself is following you.
Yeah, that's really a huge honor, obviously, and so terrifying because, you know, he's not always saying, but he said in a tweet, like, you know, the whole staff is kind of like following my stuff, which is terrifying, especially when you write the occasional negative feedback on the show, you know, but you gotta be honest, I guess.
Not that that negative feedback's ever come back to bite you in the ass.
No, not yet.
Not yet?
Yeah, I mean, you never know, man.
I'd say that's a little bit no, actually
presumptuous.
It is a little bit okay. It is okay to be just a little bit worried, but yeah. Anyway, so the first thing we want to discuss is the final batch of episodes from season 6.
Yep.
So So the episodes are The Web, The Mess, The Heart, The Revolt, The Decisions, The BFFs, and the series finale, The Inquisition. So
Yep,
let's start. Let's start with The Web. Actually, let's get The Web over and done with. I just want to say, this episode is dog shit. This
is a great episode to start the conversation with, because it's not a good episode at all.
No.
Great first impressions, just kind of shitting on an episode of the show on my part, but the web is really not a good episode by any standards.
Well, if the episode deserves being shat on, then I welcome the opportunity.
I want to hold the show accountable to when it, messes stuff up, and obviously the web was just such a big misstep. The whole season hasn't really known what to do with Nicole as a character, which is a shame because, she was such a huge component of last season's best episodes, but the fact that the web is like the last time we see her, and the whole joke is that she doesn't know how technology works to such a ridiculous extent that it just defies how she's been characterized in previous episodes. It's just incredibly frustrating.
Which is baffling to me because, I've said it before, I've said it again, but just because Gumball is a purely episodic show, well, not purely, it's, just because Gumball is mostly...
in some of the episodic stuff, yeah.
Just because it's mostly an episodic show doesn't mean that, its audience, has forgotten anything that's been unraveled in past episodes, and neither should the show itself.
Oh yeah, I definitely, even if a show is as episodic as Gumball tends to be, the characters are supposed to be a constant, which allows it to explore so many different things, but it always has the same characters behind it that keeps it grounded. But when you have an episode like The Web that just openly defies how a character has been established, it just kind of hurts to watch to an extent,
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't help that the jokes themselves are pretty, I won't call them hit or miss because all of them missed.
Well, I don't know if I agree with you entirely with that sentiment, but I do think that just the overall mood and the tone and what the episode's going for definitely dampens the effect of the jokes because you know that even if you find it funny, it's at the expense of what the show's already established. So it's really hard to think about. But I think there are some good moments, but the problem is that just the whole episode is entirely unnecessary and it just doesn't work. So they just sink to the bottom.
Are you referring to the sight gags that the episode was going for? Like Nicole taking every aspect of internet culture literally and doing what she can to protect Gumball and Darwin, because if that's what you're talking about, then that wasn't funny to me.
I don't find that funny either. Obviously the show is just trying to go after some broad humor. She literally makes a firewall around their house, which is incredibly stupid. But I think that some of the more subtle moments, when they were going through the image that Nicole took and pointing out everything wrong with it, when it finds those things that aren't necessarily dependent on just making Nicole completely stupid, I feel like the jokes could occasionally land. But the problem is that whenever Nicole was delivering them by playing an idiot, they never work.
It never works with any character, not just Nicole.
No, it does not. Plus, I know that you're always talking about characterization, but I also just want to say the web, in terms of story structure, is terrible because the entire thing is just Gumball and Darwin laughing at Nicole or just trying to help her but failing, and then it just kind of ends on the worst note possible because they didn't know what to do.
I refuse to talk too much about narrative with regards to the web because there was none as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, yeah.
As far as I know, anyway.
The thing is, I can kind of I don't support it, but I can rationalize why a writer would write something like this if it actually got to an interesting endpoint, but the episode just kind of stops happening.
Yeah.
And then it just raises problems and none of them get resolved.
Victor Chardin is asking, how would we feel if the episode was done with Richard instead of Nicole? It still wouldn't be good.
I agree. Because I think that, that would just hinge on all of the worst components of Richard. This season's been incredibly good to him. And I feel like an episode like this would just kind of reset all of that progress.
Yeah.
And, like, then the whole premise inherently feels like something that the show would do in, like, season 1, maybe trying to, like, dip their toes in the water. But
yes,
this far in, literally last stretch, and you drop an episode like The Web, and I just don't think there's really any way to make it work.
It kind of reminds me of my sentiments towards the Roots from season 4, in that this feels like something that should belong in season 1, but I don't get why they're exploring it. This far down into the show's lifespan. Like, I get the intention, at least with the Roots, I get the intention behind it, and the humor does stick to save its questionable premise, but the same really can't be said for The Web. I think The Web, regardless of what season you find that episode in, it's always going to fail, especially with this kind of execution.
So you're saying that you don't really like the Roots, just out of curiosity? Because that's
no,
I
like the Roots.
Really enjoy.
No, I'm comparing The Web unfavorably to the Roots, which is a fine episode. If you ignore the fact that the premise is a bit confusing.
Yeah, I mean, I just think you brought it up because, The Roots has that scene where, like, Nicole explicitly shows that she actually understands how to use technology and the internet when she, like, goes through Darren's browser history. So the fact that they kind of erase that part of her characterization from that episode in The Web by just making her completely stupid just feels like kind of a poor decision. I don't know.
Right. Also, the song sucks, just want to say. The song in this episode is...
I kind of like it because the show is pursuing a very different, like, kind of near Sister Rega type of tone, because usually the songs are written in more of a straightforward, like, this is going to be, like, just a basic kind of song level. And I do think that the song tries to take some risks in terms of writing differently and having more of a deadpan delivery, but it doesn't really work in the context of the episode because it doesn't actually contribute to the episode. So it just kind of happens for presumably YouTube to fall in love with, but then it just goes away, and there's no reason for it to exist.
Maybe it's just me. And also, I don't really think it's creative to just superimpose a bunch of transparent vectors into a background and call it a day, which is basically the background of the song in a nutshell.
I mean, I do think it was just kind of like an aesthetic choice to mimic what the song's kind of making references to. But yeah, I don't even know if it's acquired because that would imply that it's good. But I think that it's passable, but not really one that I would ever say, like, hey, this is a great song from the show. It just sort of happens.
Yeah. That's what the song is at best. At worst, it compounds the whole problem of the obligatory pop culture references and commentaries that the show seemed to be committed to in its last legs. So anyway, final score for The Web from me is a what's a good analogy? The final score for The Web for me is a camel piss smelling 2 out of 5. That's the best way I can put it. Because this episode reeks of camel piss.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. Please don't watch it. I'm so sad because I saw on Tumblr, like, there was a shot from it that got, like, thousands of whatever the thing you do on Tumblr is, like, notes or whatever. But they're like, oh, the show is so clever. But, like, no, why do you choose this episode, though? Of all the episodes you could have chosen. Because this is a good show, but you just go and you demonstrate how good it is by pointing at some of the worst jokes from the worst episodes. So, yeah, just terrible.
So going by your letter grade system, what is your
It's a
grade?
fat C. It's a fat C.
Wow.
Like, there's... Ugh. And I will say, that is actually probably on the upper end of some of the grades I'm giving out for these last few episodes, because there have been some very difficult ones to come out at the tail end of the series, but the web is definitely not a good entry.
That actually seems quite generous in my eyes, but hey, it's not my system, it's yours, so who am I to judge?
Yeah. I mean, I give it some points for trying to have... It has some decent jokes. The song is fine, but just everything else about it doesn't work. So
Yeah.
I do get that I'm a bit lenient, but
Okay.
I don't think it's the worst the show's done. Just among the worst.
Someone commented that this is far from the worst episode of season 6, and I personally disagree. And funnily enough, they mentioned one of the episodes that we will be talking about later. But we will
I can only
for the
imagine
time
what it
being.
is.
For the time being, we're just gonna have to stick with the order that we're going with. So the next episode,
Yeah.
The Mess, a huge step up from the web, definitely.
Oh, definitely.
A definite
Yes.
step up. That's not to say it's perfect, because there are some flaws.
There's a few issues with
That
the
hold it
pacing, I think, which is, the biggest problem. I think the biggest thing about The Mess for me is just that it's such an unequivocally fun episode to watch, I feel like season 6, it's been pretty strong, but there's been a lot of episodes that just feel like they exist to kind of like fill out a quota, but you see an episode like The Mess, which just is filled with this enthusiasm and just sense of fun, and I don't know. It makes it hard to really talk about the problems with it because it's just so exciting to watch, and I feel like that's something you have to account for when you talk about episodes like this.
And it's perfectly in tune with the absurdism angle that Gumball has been sticking with since the beginning. Like,
Oh, definitely.
my only issue is I'm pretty sure you feel the same way, but my issue is with the second half. Not so much that it's bad,
Yeah.
but personally, the biggest strength of a mystery is to keep it as much as shrouded from logic and in mystery as possible. And I think by trying to make sense of what transpired in the first half, it kind of somewhat diminishes the impact of the first half, somewhat, not completely.
Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from, and I do think the second half of the episode is the most problematic. But I will say that I like the idea of them retracing the steps, because I feel like if it was just the entire episode of them being sleep deprived and kind of fading in and out of all these weird scenarios, that I just wouldn't like it as much, because I would feel like there was no like logical trail leading from one thing to the next. And while that is definitely a way just to format an episode, I do like that they actually kind of thought through and made sure that they explained the logic behind everything that happens.
I think this episode kind of put itself in a corner because of how disjointed all the bizarre ass events that happened were, and it would take a lot of effort to cohesively put them all together. But I think that's a concession that the episode can make, so that we can get more out of the second half than what we got.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely, again, I say the first half is definitely the best in terms of just the fact that for some reason, the show always nails when they just make Gumball and Darn pitifully sleep deprived. I don't know why it always works. It always does. And it's so fun for the writers and for the voice actors to be able to just frame it through that lens, and it always works. The problem just is the fact that I wish there was a little bit more of that, in that there would still be the explanation at the end, but maybe make it a little bit shorter, because it just kind of takes up a bit too much of the time, I feel like.
Yeah, it does. And especially given what the premise was supposed to be, Gumball and Darwin taking care of Polly, who we strangely enough, don't see that much in this episode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she emerges a lot more in the second half, but the first half, the whole idea is just they don't know where she is, so it kind of makes sense, I guess.
So she plays an integral role without really making that much of an appearance.
Yeah. Yeah, she's kind of like an observer, really.
Mm-hmm. Which is fine by me, really.
Yeah.
Too bad I can't say the same about Penny. Like...
Yeah, one of the show's many flaws, just the fact that it always sets this kind of stuff up, like, oh, this huge twist, all of a sudden, you know, the shell happens and it's gorgeous, and you think, oh, the show's going to start doing more of this stuff, but then it just doesn't. So, yeah, this is Penny's, like, last episode, I'm pretty sure. Well, she appears in the last one, but doesn't really do anything. But not a great role here for her.
No. Better than Nicole's role in the web, that much. That much I can say.
Well, I think that's only because Penny doesn't even do anything.
YOLO says that it's interesting how Penny was able to catch on to Gumball's bullshit, but not, Wait, is that supposed to be... Are you supposed to be talking about Gumball's parents or Penny's parents?
No, he's talking about the Fitzgeralds, because, you know, they come over and they're just like, okay, cool, thanks. Oh. And they don't really question the fact that Gumball and Darwin just look like they have been tripping off of exhaustion.
Oh, right. Okay. I do like that last gag where Penny spends pretty much the entire day
just ragging on them, yeah.
Yeah. Throwing this massive tantrum at Gumball and Darwin. It's a good
I like that as a closer, yeah. I did enjoy that, though I do kind of... There's no way to put her more into the episode than they did, though, so it's just kind of unfortunate that you shouldn't really get anything else from the season besides the transformation, which was good, but kind of felt like damage control at times.
Yeah. And made even worse by the fact that there are no more episodes centered on Penny.
Nope.
So what score would we give The Mess? For me, I would give it a 3.5 out of 5. This is a fun episode.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah.
Also, I want to give a shout out to Ben Bocale. Ben, you cheeky son of a bitch. You pretty much confirmed, hint, that Gumwin is official. Why?
God.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Just don't. Why do you got to taint the stream? You say that stuff, man. Oh God.
I don't know.
So
people have been going nuts about this, and the last thing I want is for people to bite my head off for not mentioning it. Ugh.
Was that an issue in the first place? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we did get the shipping, so you know, you guys get that too if you want to, you know. As for me,
yeah.
I think I gave the episode an A- just because it's so freaking fun, and I do kind of stand by that. Though it's not like a high A-, probably more like a B+ A- range episode. There's a lot of problems with it that are, you know, fairly evident when you watch it, but it's just, I don't know. It feels so fresh and invigorating, you know?
And I'd say that this is one of the few episodes that harks back to the early days of the show in a pretty good way. Not that and I mean that there are. It's one of those episodes. I say that because at least with the Matchmaker, it acknowledges like old aspects of season 1 to, you know, push its narrative forward, and it's not quite it's quite different from how the Matchmaker accomplishes this, but you get what I mean. Just the fun that we've come to associate with season 1. It's back. This episode kind of reminds me of that, the carefreeness of it.
Yeah. I I don't know if I would compare it to, I definitely get that, you have that season 1 level of just complete enthusiasm, even with not the best ideas, but it just, I don't know. I don't know what I would consider it as besides just a really solid episode. It feels like maybe season 3 or 4 could have done something like that, in my opinion, just because,
I suppose.
there's not the sense of fatigue that a lot of season 6's more unimpressive episodes have had.
Right.
I guess we're going to talk more about the season as a whole in a little bit, but
Yeah.
that's kind of a little teaser.
Oh,
God, that's such a stupid word.
Oh, trust us, we will get to that. The Heart, the next episode, it's also another really good episode. If I say so myself. So let me preface this by saying that I was at best impartial to the whole Gumball and Darwin being obsessed with the Robinsons thing. At worst, I didn't like it. Just because it felt so asinine at times, especially in the beginning with the debt and how committed Gumball was to trying to win Mr. Robinson's favor and whatnot. I do feel that this is a good way to bring that whole dynamic full circle. Don't you think?
I definitely have a lot of the same thoughts, because the fact that the kids have had this, consistent sense of just love for this guy who hates them so much has been a weird thing that just persists along, because a lot of the stuff from season 1 was very heavily reconsidered, but that was like one of the few narrative strands that never seemed to change, with the exception of the tag, which the show just kind of forgot about, so that's not important. But I will say that for some reason, I don't want to, but every time the show does an episode with Mr. Robinson and Gumball and Darwin, I always think that it works. Like, even though the sale is it reflects badly on the characters, it's such a funny and stupid episode that I love it so much. And I feel like it's just kind of, God, I don't know how to describe it. I'm not used to talking. I'm used to having the little words come out of my fingers. But,
I thought you were
kind of like
thought you were going to make the Rush Hour joke with Chris Tucker going, "Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?" And I'm sorry to Chris Tucker for butchering his line.
Oh, he's just happy anybody remembers him at this point. But how do you feel about the Heart? Because I know that, we're both not the hugest fans of the Mr. Robinson arc, but how do you just feel about what the episode did and what it accomplished?
Yeah, it sheds a completely different light into Mr. Robinson from what we've usually seen from him up to this point. It's nice to it skirts the fine line between over the top and just downright uncomfortable. Like
Really?
It's not like with shit, what was the name of that episode with Margaret being
Sale?
a total monster? No.
Oh, the Wicked.
The Wicked. It's different from The Wicked in that Margaret's antics there are gleefully over the top, and every aspect of the episode contributes to creating this sadistic, gleeful, and kind of fun atmosphere. This one is sort of like that, but not quite there. Just by virtue of what we see of Mr. Robinson in flashbacks, doing those horrible things to what are basically toddlers and stuff. But the actual antics that the Mr. Robinson gets into are just entertaining enough to keep him from being too despicable. And that's the thing with trying to portray something in any kind of fiction. You want to be as relatable as you can get, but not too relatable that it hits way too close to home for comfort and invokes some really ill feelings from your audience.
Yeah.
And
personally, I thought that he looked really good in the episode, because I get that like they do have the little flashback kind of like the choices type thing where they show, you know, all the terrible things he's done to them. But I think that this is a really good episode for him, because I wrote about it a lot on my website. But season 6 has been really about burying the hatchet in terms of some of the conflicts that have been going on with the characters. So, you know, Alan got the faith and
which is amazing.
The cringe. Hot Dog Guy got the cringe, which is not bad, but... Sorry, there's a spider, and it's annoying the crap out of me, so I'm gonna kill it. Go away! This is what live television looks like!
Hey, what that spider ever did
I don't even know what I was talking about. He existed, and that's enough. What the hell was I talking about?
3 words. Lucas the Spider. Watch that after this podcast/stream is over. Anyway, so
I'll try to look that up. But yeah, he looks good in this episode. That's what I was saying. That I think a huge part of that is that the episodes usually take place by showing Gumball and Darn's perspective. I can't talk. His perspective of, you know, the kids. But this is entirely focused on Mr. Robinson. Gumball and Darn are just kind of like along the outskirts, and they make occasional appearances until the end. And I think that that's a great angle for the episode to take, because we haven't really gotten an episode focused on Mr. Robinson before and told from his lens, and I really liked that. I feel like you could kind of get more into his emotions and how he was feeling about the situation, because even though he's a very out-of-touch character, does a lot of stupid things, he's just inherently likable, I feel like. It's easy to kind of get on his side of the scenario, even though he's clearly in the wrong.
Yeah, and on that note, that ending could have seemed like it came completely out of left field, but that's usually the danger with trying to come up with any kind of resolution. But thankfully, it doesn't feel like that, and it perfectly gels with the whole context of the episode of Mr. Robinson being an unfeeling asshole, and what I kind of expected actually is I get that they were going for the whole angle of Mr. Robinson not realizing what emotion is, and what I was expecting was that Gumball and Darwin could revisit aspects of his life that invoked any kind of positive emotion or something, like him being married to his wife, or something like that.
Yeah.
It would be a departure from what the characters are typically portrayed as, but if it's handled correctly, then this departure would not be that big of a deal, especially if it helps the characters in the process.
Yeah. I know you talked a little bit about Margaret there, who's barely in the episode, but I didn't mind that. But I'm curious, how did you feel about Rocky's role in the episode?
It's pretty funny. I have to say, even if he's just if he's at best a third wheel. Actually, fourth wheel? A fourth wheel of sorts. I like how he has to keep bailing out his dad.
It's like, Dad, please stop.
Every what?
I loved his. Yeah, he was just like the straight man, and I feel like he did a great job, because we really don't see a lot of Rocky and Mr. Robinson together, because Rocky's always kind of with the kids, and I liked. Just, it makes no sense that if, you know, he's his son, we'd barely see them together, but, you know, here in the heart, they're kind of in it together, and Rocky's trying to help his dad, but his dad is absolutely terrible at everything he's trying to do. But they have this really good chemistry, I feel like, that just makes me wish that we saw more of them doing stuff together.
Oh, well, we always have, was that episode where Rocky was trying to became...
Are you thinking of The Boss?
Yeah, the boss. Yeah,
where he
that's
gets the job. Yeah.
yeah.
Even then, it wasn't. They didn't really interact that much. It was just kind of, acknowledging that, I keep saying, But yeah, I really like the heart, and I think that the song at the end was a great addition. And I thought that the ending, I think you said you felt like it was a little bit tacked on, but I really liked it.
The important thing is that it brings everything together.
Oh yeah, definitely.
How to brainwash children.
It does come out of nowhere, admittedly, but I do think that the revelation that he just doesn't know how to feel feelings is, it makes sense,
Yes, it does. And that's what I said. That's why I said that it could have come out of left field. It could seem like it, but thankfully it didn't.
Yeah.
So, the heart is a 4 out of 5 for me. Because this is a proper conclusion to the dynamic between the Robinsons and the Watterson brothers, which is more than I can say for a couple of the overarching plots of the show. Not that this was an overarching plot or anything.
Yeah.
And your letter grade for this episode is, Matt?
I gave it an A. And just to clarify, I do have a scale of A+ to F. But A is like, this could be a classic episode, I feel like. This is an episode that I would point people in the direction of if they wanted to kind of see what the show's capable of. Because this is just an episode that does every little thing right. And it has, I will say season 6 has been good about having these kind of weirdly emotional episodes that feel sincere. And I think The Heart definitely succeeds in that regard. Because it has a lot of legitimate sentiment behind it that I think lands really nicely.
Maybe you should add the extra S grade. Oh wait, no, only the Japanese do that.
Oh god.
And
I will say I have theorized a grade that transcends everything else, but not a lot of shows have gotten it, and sadly Gumball didn't. But like,
well.
that's irrelevant. This doesn't mean it's a bad show. Like, Gumball is an amazing show, but it didn't like make me rethink what television was capable of or whatever.
Hashtag non sequiturs. So the next episode, The Revolt. Very, 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 very confusing. I do not understand this episode in the slightest. And this is coming from someone who can follow pretty much any episode of the show to a T. I don't get it.
Yeah. This is... I feel like a lot of people don't have very strong opinions of The Revolt because, we have episodes like The Web and a later one, which are inherently unlikable. But I sincerely think that The Revolt is the worst episode that the show has done since season 1 because it's just... It doesn't do anything right. And they put so much freaking work into it, and yet none of it really works. It's just a mess, an amalgamation of so many ideas that everybody's having, but all of them just suck so hard. And, God. Because I do get that the show was like, hey, let's do an episode where we kind of make fun of virtue signaling, so we can have Darn try to stand up for the objects. But that doesn't work because if it's trying to, frame it through that lens and say, oh, Darn's speaking for these guys when they don't care, the joke just becomes the objects don't even know that they're being quote-unquote oppressed. So it's like, should we be speaking up for minorities and just feel happy about that?
And it becomes
minority groups.
It becomes even more lost in translation because Darwin is advocating for objects that inherently have no sentience, whereas Darwin was able to grow a pair of lungs, a pair of arms and a pair of legs, but he was already sentient from the beginning. So it doesn't really make any sense to advocate for this sort of stuff for something or someone whose perspective you most likely won't completely understand.
Yeah. And the thing is, first of all, the satire doesn't work. But then, like, in the third act, where the objects are like, oh, we're just going to take over now. Suddenly it doesn't even make sense with any of what the episode's been doing before. None of what it establishes matters. And it's just... it just basically feels like they kind of gave up, which is weird because they put a lot of freaking effort into everything about the episode. They had all these extravagant musical numbers and like a ton of montaging, but it doesn't add up to anything at all. It just feels like they're trying to go for broke, but they really are so burned out by that point they can't distinguish what really makes an amazing episode amazing. So they kind of try to emulate what that mode would be, but they don't know what they're doing somehow.
Speaking of the humor, I don't think much of it works, or any of it works. Period. Because I don't know when it goes with sight gags, it feels like it's the obvious kind of sight gags, and when it goes for it's verbally driven humor, it feels so, I don't know, it feels so lifeless. It just feels so lifeless to me.
I just want to point out there is a war going on over whether the revolt or the web is worse in the comments. And what is your? I feel like you don't like the web significantly more than you dislike the revolt, right?
I find the web to be just slightly worse, but the revolt is not a good episode either.
See, I feel like it's two different strokes, right? Because the web is bad on the front of characters, and the revolt is bad on the front of being conceptual. And it just kind of depends on what you favor. So I can definitely understand why you would hate the web more. But I've always loved Gumball because of the conceptual nature of the show and all of the ideas they play with. So it offends me so much more when they just don't know what the hell they're doing, I feel like.
Well, conceptually, the web is also a bad episode. Not as bad as the revolt in that context, but its concept, it still doesn't have its concept going for it.
Yeah. How do you feel about the joke that it ends on, by the way, with the snapping pencil? If you even recall that.
Yes, I do, and this is not my territory. I'm just gonna leave that to the darkest parts of the internet. A scumball episode. Scumball.
God. Freaking. I feel like DeviantArt flashbacks with that word right now. Oh, God. I don't know. That joke is like, I feel like one of the worst jokes this show's ever. Like, what were they trying to do? The joke is like fucking ass rape. I don't know. Like, we don't. This is TVY7, guys, or whatever you have in Australia. Don't do that, man. It feels tasteless, and also it's not even a good joke, so I can't even defend it.
I mean, it's not like that joke with Gumball and Alan in the storm. That one was actually good.
Yeah, that joke works because it's inherently funny just on a level of like, you know, the show doing what it does best, but then it's also like, you know, an adult joke. This is just an adult joke, I feel like.
I guess this one doesn't work because of how blatant it is, like you said.
Yeah.
It's because of how
I don't know.
Because of its transparency.
I feel like you can joke about anything. There shouldn't be anything off limits, but it's also a matter of like, if you're gonna do that, make the joke good and have it from the right perspective.
Actually, that's a problem with this whole episode. Period. It's lack of subtlety. It beats you in the head with the virtue signaling angle, and it's quite frustrating. But.
Oh man, it's so sad that like of the last few episodes of the show you get like there's a lot of clunkers, but then the revolt is just like so bad. It's so freaking terrible.
I imagine that the revolt is an F from you.
It's not. It's a D+ for me. Because I've never really given an F. Well, that's not true. There's one thing I think deserves an F, but it's definitely not related to Gumball. But the thing with the revolt is just that I can't really respect it for anything it does besides trying, which is like that's kind of disappointing. I feel like.
So a D plus from Mattalamode. It's a 2 out of 5 from me.
That feels high though.
Too generous?
What qualifies as a 1 for you, or a 1.5, or a 0?
At least at least character consistency is there. Somewhat. Not completely, but you know,
I feel like they don't really have anything interesting to their characters, just kind of being vaguely Gumball-esque and Darwin-esque and just kind of traipsing their way along.
But
I don't know.
If I were to actually grade an episode an F in your system, ADC 91802 pretty much has the right idea. Anyway, but that's just me. So, Revolt, not a good episode in the slightest.
Nope.
Hopefully it gets better from here. The decisions. Let's see if it's better. Okay.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, you could put like a lot of episodes. We could go the web. Oh, it's better, but like the decisions really is a step up, you know.
Oh my god. I just realized how schizophrenic these episodes and I'm sorry to use schizophrenia as an analogy, but it's as apt a description I can give as anything else. But anyway, so you got one good episode, one bad episode, one good episode, one bad episode, one good episode. What the hell? Anyway, the decisions.
Well, the only thing breaking that pattern, mess in the heart, good. But besides that, it really is straight up good, bad, good, bad, good. Which I guess is a bit of a spoiler. We're gonna get to the BFFs in a little bit, obviously. But the decisions, really good in my opinion. I feel like not a lot of people really enjoyed it that much, but I thought it was just a really solid kind of bit of character work, you know? Because Darwin is really, he really deserves to have a good episode every once in a while. And I feel like decisions is a great entry for him.
I think part of the, I don't know if apathy is the right word to say, but part of the feelings, those feelings that you mentioned that others have towards this episode is because it's another one of those episodes that focuses on Darwin trying to gain some measure of agency or autonomy, like being his own person instead of letting someone be that person for him.
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of sad that it took this long for them to, you know, give Darwin that kind of heroic moment. It does kind of reflect badly on what they've done with him in the past several seasons if the idea of him being independent is, like, crucial. But I do think that it was a nice way to acknowledge, like, hey, guys, we didn't use Darwin that great, so we're going to try to fix that a little bit. And yeah, it comes late, but I do really appreciate the gesture because I know there's a lot of people who love Darwin and are very disappointed with how he's been used, and I feel
not
like
to say that this is
a nice. It's a great episode, but it just kind of contextually it's a bit sad. But I do like that we finally got, you know.
So
it's kind of like how the transformation was like. It was a great episode, but sad in the context of what Penny got. So it's kind of like his transformation.
So do you think that this that the decisions is a bigger example of that than the transformation, or no?
I feel like I like the transformation a bit more because it's trying to do different stuff. It's kind of more of like a bottle episode and things like that. It's being more creative.
Yeah.
I do like the decisions a lot, though, kind of just in the sense that it's solid, it's funny, it gets good characterizations out of everybody, and it feels nice to finally see something like that, you know?
Yeah. To be honest, I was a little bit worried that that this is just from the concept alone, because I was afraid that we'd get some uncharacteristically idiotic moments, which from what we've seen from the show is pretty part and parcel with this sort of premise. But thankfully, that's not the case, and I actually looking back now, I actually do like how Darwin looked in this episode, and I do like that it's turning that dependency on Gumball on its head, but not doing so to a dangerous degree that it becomes like a Ned Flanders characteristic.
Yeah. It's not like a very meta episode, but it's one that's so self-aware that I really liked. Like, there's this one moment
I wouldn't call it a meta.
No?
I wouldn't call it a meta.
And yeah, it's not meta at all. But I feel like it's very reflective and self-aware. Like, there's this one line I keep thinking about where, like, Gumball and Alan are yelling at things for Darwin to do, and Gumball's just like, you should sing, because it solves problems all the time. It's like, I like that, because there have been a ton of episodes, like The Sucker and The Box, where Darwin just, like, sings to try to solve a problem, and it doesn't work. So I like that they're like, yeah, those are dumb jokes. Let's acknowledge that.
Ziggy is saying that the only thing really wrong with this episode is that it's a retread of the Bros. I think it's more of a retread of the words to a degree.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it'd be a retread of the Bros because it involves a third party getting entangled with Gumball and Darwin's shenanigans, but. No.
I actually feel like the best comparison would be to season 2's The Sidekick, which I think is very underrated. Yeah, it's the one where Darwin decides he's had enough of Gumball and he's like decides to lead his own adventure for once, and it's a complete disaster.
And also there's there's the aspect of empowering Gumball, which this episode sorry, not Gumball, Darwin. The aspect of empowering Darwin, which this and the words have in common.
Yeah, I definitely see that coming.
Although I do say that I like the words better than this one. This is still good though.
Yeah. Like, Decision is not going to be like a huge episode or like a monumental one, or even one that has any chance of becoming very popular, but I do think that it's a very kind of down-to-earth, grounded episode that just is a lot of fun to watch and has a lot of good things going for it,
This episode is a 3.5 out of 5 for me.
It's a good grade. I'll give it a... Well, I already gave these the grades, but I'm standing by with a B+.
B+. Keep in mind, I'm not like news outlets out there who think a 6 or 7 or 8 out of 10 are bad scores. I think that the scores I give should best reflect the quality of whatever it is I'm evaluating, and instead of being overinflated. And I'm sure Matt's system is built the same way.
Yeah. Like, I have given out a lot of Bs, and they aren't inherently bad, because I think a B is a decent episode, but when you watch Gumball, you kind of expect above average, right? And I feel like, for the most part, it is.
Yeah. That is correct. Mattalamode has bandied himself the unfunny guy that talks about funny show. But when he's with me, we're gonna have to cut that unfunny part permanently. Not while I'm around, because I'm here to make him look like $1 million.
Yeah, we'll see about how that works out by the end.
So, consider me what's a good celebrity to use in this context? God damn it! There's
so many of them, man. You gotta choose one. You gotta make the analogy work. All the pressure's on you, man. Okay, people are waiting. People are counting on this.
The burden
You're disappointing all of them.
The burden of being
all
so charismatic. Matt a la Matt. Sounds
God.
Mode a la mode. It sounds like a mole growing out of control in your face.
Should we just acknowledge the joy in the console thing? That's Mel Brooks.
I want to say we have a separate topic reserved for for those discussions, and I do want to keep things orderly. So we will get to it.
Sorry, I just want to say, Mel Brooks is definitely not what Martin was looking for.
No, not Mel Brooks.
No.
Someone charismatic.
No.
Brian
Also
Blessed.
not Kevin Spacey.
Brian Blessed. He's fucking charismatic. Fucking Boston ass from The Phantom Menace, which was admittedly a piece of shit, but whatever. Anyway, that's enough with celebrity analogies and me making an ass of myself. The BFFs.
Wait, why are people saying that they thought my name was Matt Malone? Matt Malone doesn't make any sense. I just want to point out, Mattalamode is a very well-tread statement thingy. Whatever that was. Come on, guys.
Could be
you
better.
Gotta read.
Could be worse. He could be called Matt a la carte.
Yeah. I mean, that's two variations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should we move on to the BFFs?
I just got to that. Oh my god. I just wanted to tune out when I watched this episode. Well,
this is the penultimate episode of the show, guys.
the second to last episode.
I don't think I've ever seen a more disappointing second to last episode of anything. Because why did they choose this? Why did they write it? And why did they decide, yeah, this is going to be number 239? Because I feel like both of those could have been avoided by just saying the word no, and it wouldn't have come into existence. But I guess that's a bit too simple, isn't it?
Ignoring the fact that that this episode is a total dud. Let's look at a couple of problems with the concept. Number one, it completely flies in the face of the dynamic between Gumball and Darwin. We're supposed to be closer than brothers, closer than super glue can bring them together. But if the writers were intent on going through with this concept, why now? Why this? Why so far into the season, after all these developments that solidified who Gumball and Darwin are, both individually and together?
I don't. God, the BFFs is just like somehow the most nondescript episode I've ever seen. Like it feels like an algorithm wrote it or something. It's not charming or charismatic or interesting or exciting, and it tries to do exciting things, but none of them work. So I like how half the sentences I say just kind of end with ugh. Although I do think in this case the BFFs does deserve that.
Yes, it does. I guess this BFF looking a lot like a Furby kind of describes the actually not describe, kind of illustrates what sort of crap you're gonna be into the BFF.
Yeah.
Going into the BFFs.
Yeah.
Let's look at some of the let's look at the actual merits of the episode. So it's
Are there really any merits though? I don't.
Okay.
I legitimately can't.
Okay,
I can't think of
aspects of the episode. That's a
I like that it has an ending. I think that's really cool. How it doesn't just keep going. How it knows how to stop.
A pretty empty
cool.
ending, admittedly.
But I feel like any ending feels nice after having to watch that. You know. Because like, I feel like sometimes if there's a bad episode like The Web, at least there's a few choice laughs to get out of it. The BFFs somehow has no good jokes in it, really.
No, no.
I'd say
And
all of them are terrible.
and we've actually had a couple of discussions with Alpha J of the Alpha J Show. And time and again he's brought up his dislike for episodes centered on jealousy. Not that the show has done a completely bad job with jealousy, but the track record speaks for itself. It's one hell of a mixed bag at best, but or a total disaster at worst. And this is unfortunately in the category of terrible jealousy-centered episodes.
Yeah, and one of the big issues is that Darn's jealousy just doesn't get anywhere. Because there's no indication that Fuzzy, or whatever the fuck his name is, there's no indication that that guy is going to turn out to be evil, and then he just does, so suddenly Darn's bad behavior throughout the episode just gets redeemed for no reason. And I feel like that's such a bad note to go out on. It justifies overprotectiveness.
Yeah. That reveal, it was so predictable, that fucking reveal, but it doesn't make it any less of a cop-out. Like,
the thing is, I didn't want it to be I thought maybe he's just a good guy. Like, Gumball is usually capable of changing up the formula, but no, he seems good. There's literally no indication he's going to turn evil, and then bam, he wants to, like, trap Gumball and keep him in a onesie, which I'm sure made some corners of the internet very happy, but not this one.
If I want to watch a blatant villain reveal, I'll just watch the past 5 Disney movies, including The Incredibles 2. Not that I'll get much enjoyment from seeing those, but yeah. Well, I refer to the twists, the quote-unquote twists, not the movies themselves. The movies themselves were good. Can't say the same thing about this episode, because it falls down the cliche tree and hits every branch on the way down.
I think the thing I like a lot about the show is that usually it knows how to telegraph what it's doing to a really amazing extent. Like, you see episodes like The Remote, which is just all about having this massive slow burn, and they're amazing. And then you get the BFFs, which the only thing it telegraphs is one line about Fuzzy having a friend in Minnesota, and that's it. Nothing else about it really lines up theoretically in the narrative. So it's just, God.
What a twist. 2 out of 5.
I can't think of a worse twist. I'm gonna give that a Bernie Convention in Liechtenstein out of 10. I think.
Oh no. Oh shit, Matt's going pro-Jared on us. You just used the pro-Jared scale.
Yep, and that's the only thing I have in common with pro-Jared.
Oh my god.
Hope.
Oh my god, you do not want to have similarities with pro-Jared. I beg you, Matt. Please, come back to the light.
I'm 18. I don't do anything. I sit in my room and I write about kids shows.
Don't stray from the light before it's too late.
So yeah, C-.
And I
C-.
guess
It's such a nice, solid grade to get for something that just isn't good. I feel like, something, I don't know why I love things that are C- because they have a lot of issues that are so obvious. You just get to kind of analyze them, and it just feels fun to me. The episode's terrible, and I don't want to watch it again. But I love C- as just something to watch and to look at and be like, yeah, that's not right. There's a kind of macabre appeal to it.
So, it gives you, like, a scratching post of sorts.
It's definitely something you can learn off of if you're interested in comedy and just be like, they could have done this better or whatever. Just get to examine all of the problems because they're so obvious.
Yeah. And, yeah, it's pretty sad to see Gumball Wait, do cats whimper, or yelp when
No,
they're in pain, or what?
They make noise.
Squeal. How about squeal?
I guess you could. I have a cat. I've never caused damage to said cat, so I wouldn't really know.
It's sad. What I'm trying to say is, it's sad to see this show going out on the pained sound that a cat makes instead of a glorious growl.
Yeah.
But anyway, speaking of ending, it's time.
Oh God, it is time, isn't it?
This
The
is
Inquisition. It is.
Final episode of the show, and
yeah.
I am still.
I can't think of an episode that's gotten more mixed reception than the Inquisition did.
Which isn't really fair to the episode itself, because the episode is a really good episode.
Oh, it's a fantastic episode. For me, it does everything that you could really want a series finale to do. Even if there are a lot of problems with it, which, as Ben has said on Twitter, may not have been really intentional. But I feel like given what they had and what limitations they might have had, they did a really amazing job.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Plus, it was legitimately surprising, too, which is always a good sign, is that it does stuff that you really didn't really see coming, you know?
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty surprised that it only took them now to incorporate a real life living breathing human being into the show. I'm not referring to like the separate vignettes of real life people that's meant to be distinct from the show's atmosphere, or that one moment in the night where Sussy transforms into her actress.
They do have Kip Schlesinger, who... Yeah. The difference, obviously, is the fact that the live-action person here actually played a role in the episode and was put next to cartoon characters, which a lot of people were kind of wondering, are they ever going to do that? And I was worried when I saw, the thumbnail, because it's such a risky move to make, but I feel like they really handled it well. And I think a lot of kudos goes to Garrett Hagon, I think is his name, because he really makes it work. He has like the right kind of emoting and the right acting, and it's fantastic. Yeah, Garrett Hagon. He also voices the mayor and one of the goats from the ad.
Oh, okay.
I feel like you have a little bit more of a mixed opinion than I do, so I am curious what your thoughts are about it.
That's gonna depend on whether I evaluate this episode as a standalone episode or as a finale. Because as a finale, it's not good. As its own episode, it's amazing.
I don't know if I agree with you about it being a bad finale. So,
I'm sorry.
I feel like a lot of people are very unhappy that... Sorry, but a lot of people are unhappy that the episode ended in a very cynical way, but I don't really see the series ending in any other way, because that's just what the show does. And while there are a lot of nice optimistic moments, as a whole, the show likes to go in that direction, so it just wouldn't make sense if it was an episode full of sunshine and singing and all of that stuff. I don't know if that's your issue, but I feel like a lot of people have that complaint.
No, that's not my issue. My issue is that you know what? We'll get to that in a moment. I guess we should discuss the merits of the episode properly. So,
sure, yeah.
The concept of it, I had a feeling that it was going to be a meta in nature, just because of how the premise is described. With saying that cartoonish conduct will be abolished and that sort of stuff. So I had a feeling that it would shake the foundation of the show substantially, and it does.
Yeah.
It does. And as that guy 456 from our server said, it was an interesting take on this angle, because we weren't expecting like a loss of identity on the part of the Elmore Junior High student body and faculty. Like he mentioned that, and I completely agree with this, and I don't mean to sound like a parrot, but the visual aspect of Gumball is very integral, and
that's what put it on the map.
And to see something that made it so special being erased utterly is one hell of a shakeup, a meta level shakeup. To see a CGI being like Bobbert and Tina being turned into regular traditionally drawn. I don't know if they are traditionally drawn. Two-dimensionally drawn characters really makes quite the impact. And it really puts into perspective what the show could have been if it was just like any other show out there on a visual front.
There's something so intelligent about the episode to take the thing that made Gumball what it was in the early days and has persisted as such a huge component, just the visual style, and to just turn that on its head. Because it has chased after a lot of things conceptually, but I feel like that's probably the biggest stride that they've made, is to just question the entire nature of the show, to reconsider everything that is done and everything that is constructed in 11 minutes is kind of insane.
Victor Chardin said that Gumball and Banana Joe were dancing the Fortnite dance in this episode.
They
Is that true?
they did floss. They flossed for 1 second.
So that was
literally
Fortnite.
I'm pretty sure 1 second. Yeah, you know that floss, right? Everybody knows the
I don't
floss
follow
to some
Fortnite.
extent. I don't follow it either, but you've seen little kids.
I know that there's a dance. I mean, but just because I play Dance Dance Revolution regularly doesn't mean I know every dance.
Here's the thing: is that I'm always annoyed with the omnipresence of flossing. I've watched a lot of shows that I love, and they've incorporated flossing in at some point. It's just kind of like painful to me, but it's a huge part of the zeitgeist, and I do think it will age absolutely terribly on the episode's part. But the fact that it only really exists for a split second means that it's never too much of an issue. And I feel like, they've worked really hard for the past 8 years. Just let them do what they want for the final episode.
It's not like this is an episode of the Powerpuff Girls reboot.
Yeah.
Fork knife.
Yep.
Fork knife.
God.
As for what I think could be better with the Inquisition, I think it could have used a longer runtime.
I agree. I have thought about it a lot. I do really wish that instead of just having this 11-minute finale, which maybe not everybody was super excited about, they could have rethought some of the episodes they've written and kind of just gotten rid of them and made a longer, more fulfilling way to close out the show. Because when you see episodes like The Web and the BFFs and the Revolt in this literal last chunk, you just kind of think, why don't they just get rid of those and make like a 4-parter or something like that? Because that would have been a lot more fulfilling. But I do think that within the 11-minute time frame, they did what they could and they did a good job.
Yep. Now, that ending. That fucking ending.
Mm-hmm.
So you would not have that episode end, this episode end any other way.
I feel like I stand by that. I do wish that maybe if we had more time to develop things, I would have liked to see the legitimate aftermath, because, you know, we have gotten hints. We saw the Oracle, which had that one painting that literally set up the course for getting to this point, and it's not even brought up really in the episode. So I do wish that they did show the characters actually in the void, which might be for the movie, which we can talk about in a little bit. But given that they had 11 minutes, I feel like they chose to use their time in a pretty decent way.
Yeah. Ignoring the more contested, the more contentious responses from fans regarding that ending, and especially the entitled sounding ones. I can't stand those people. I will always stand by the position that ending, like, a series finale on a cliffhanger, a series finale ending on a cliffhanger is never a good thing. Because there always has to be closure. There always has to be closure with this grand of an endeavor, this massive investment of time. I don't care if they were trying to stay true to what this endeavor has been this entire time. There has to be everything that's been built up has to come full circle. And the writers have pretty much backed themselves into a corner with this cliffhanger, because there's just way too much there's just way too many questions opened up by this ending. And I don't know if anyone in the chat's ever seen The Walking Dead, but it brings back this sort of thing brings back pretty ugly memories of the season 6 finale of The Walking Dead. I talked about this. I think I talked about this with you yesterday, Matt, when you were on the call, or
for a second.
For a bit. Yeah, for those who don't know, and I'm not gonna be I am not gonna be ashamed of spoiling it, because it's been 2 to 3 years now since that finale. But the way The Walking Dead season 6 ended was that the group of heroes end up being captured by that particular season's group of antagonists, and the leader of that antagonist group introduces himself and ends off the episode by killing one of the heroes, and the identity of that person is obscured, and it's obscured in that the death takes place from their perspective, which gradually degrades the more this new villain just brutalizes him. That's what the Inquisition's ending harks back to. The sort of cliffhanger that could leave people hanging for God knows how long. It's with The Walking Dead, it was a 6-month gap between the end of season 6 and the beginning of season 7. With Gumball, there's no way to really judge that. And I said this in my editorial. Given that this is supposed to be the final episode of the show, and that if they were to release the movie, and who knows how long that'll take, that's really not the kind of unpredictability that the show could afford, because yeah. That's my take on it.
I can get the complete disappointment that comes from a cliffhanger ending, and I do wish that there was some way to legitimately resolve things. And I also understand that this is sort of a lead into a movie that they would like to happen, which is always a dangerous thing to do, because if the worst comes to worst and it doesn't happen, there's definitely going to be some inherent disappointment to the fact the episode ends like it does.
Making
so,
it
I don't know
even.
if you've seen. I don't know if you've seen Wander Over Yonder, but
Yes, I have.
it kind of has that same issue, because great show, canceled, didn't have to be canceled, and it just ends in the worst place it possibly could.
Brings back so many ugly memories. Oh my god. Why'd you have to remind me? On that note, it's been 3 years. It's been exactly 3 years since that show was canceled. So yeah, fuck you, Disney.
Happy anniversary, guys.
Hey, remember when this thing died? Well, it's time to remember it. Fucking hell, Disney. I fucking hate you.
Yeah, they do interesting things, I will say.
But anyway,
I don't think that Gumball was as bad. It definitely helps that they kind of ended on a note that they at least found somewhat agreeable, whereas that show did not end with them expecting it to end, which adds a very different sense. Of course, if we don't get a movie, then I guess it's kind of potato. Yeah.
I'm not gonna hold my breath that a movie will come out. I know that there are hints, like Ben saying that this is not how he wanted to end the show off on, or and the couple of hints to a movie that he tweeted about. Yeah, there are those hints, and also Gumball marketing the episode as a normal episode instead of the series finale. But yeah, I'm not gonna keep my hopes way too high. I've had my hopes dashed way too many times to fall for that shit again.
I will say, there's been an interesting question from Comic Book Fanatic 3893. He said, would it be worse if the movie not happening occurred, or if the movie happened but it was just really disappointing?
Actually, I was about to say that. That's what makes the whole issue with the Gumball movie being such a gamble, because on top of the things I mentioned, like the space of time between the Inquisition and the movie, and there's also the quality. There's also the quality to be worried about. Of course, that's a given for any new release, but I cannot speak. It's exacerbated. It's exacerbated by all the factors I've brought up.
I do feel like if a movie happened, it would be really good, because I feel like the people behind the show would be aware of like the kind of opportunity that they have in being able to make a movie, and that they would actually care about everything going into it. Of course, part of the issue is just the fact that it's going to be so far removed from its release date, most likely if it happens, that it won't necessarily be as relevant or as sought after, but I'm hoping that it works out.
Here's a question I want to ask you. So, I mentioned in my editorial that Gumball joins the ranks of Cartoon Network programming that hasn't had a proper swan song, or a swan song that can be considered worthy. Do you think it would be it would be better off for a show to just end without a proper series finale, or have a series finale of ambiguous quality? Or not quality, but reception.
Well, I feel like I am happy that the show chose to go after an ending that actually feels like an ending, because I think it's kind of a thing of the past to have cartoons that just end off of nothing, just kind of like being episodic and just having one last episode that doesn't feel like a finale. And I feel like, especially because a lot of the show's contemporaries have become increasingly serialized, they do have somewhat of an expectation to live up to what other shows are doing, but in their own way, obviously.
Right.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I am happy that they chose to go out as they did, and I understand that it's disagreeable in a lot of ways to a lot of people, but I respect them a lot more for actually trying to do what they did, and I think that they actually pulled it off pretty well.
I ask this question because I originally thought that we are at this point in time where unceremonious endings to animated shows were a thing of the past, and while that trend has been largely outgrown, there are remnants of it. Of course, some of the shows I can think of are quite lackluster, like The Problem Solvers, and even even from other channels, they've outgrown it. Like Phineas and Ferb, purely episodic, with hints, and I do stress the word hints of serialized storytelling, but still had a proper ending to everything, despite the episodic nature.
I do feel like there was a sense of weight because Gumball was making a lot of these gestures that pointed towards a fairly epic finale. So I feel like there are some expectations to come with that a lot of other shows don't necessarily have, especially in the episodic genre, because Gumball is kind of like a hybrid of both, albeit a lot more episodic. So it also doesn't help that I haven't seen a lot of these shows. And Elon Musk, I hope that he does not guest star in anything related to Gumball. Just want to put that. He doesn't have to be everywhere, okay?
Oh,
okay,
Elon
guys.
Musk, what an enigma. I just realized that we actually covered some topics out of order.
Don't worry about it, man.
Despite
this is freeform. This is jazz, man. That's what we do.
That's the beauty of spontaneity, I guess. Okay. So, my final score for the Inquisition is a 5 out of 5. Despite the grievances and issues I've made mention to, this is still a fantastic episode, amazing episode. That the insight is like nothing else from any other animated show or television show period, and yeah, it's a good standalone title, and I'm not gonna let my personal feelings affect my professional stances. So, and your letter grade is A+?
Of course it is. It's a big fat A+. It's a great episode. It's fantastic. It does what you want it to do, and I do understand that there are issues, and I totally get if you aren't a fan of it. But I feel like it's very easy to appreciate, and that it really took me by surprise with what it did. And I think that's a really huge testament to the fact that the show was always pushing the boundaries all the way to the end.
So Angry's giving it a 9 or 9.5. Exist Dragon is giving it a 9 out of 10. Wonder what everyone else is going to give this episode. Because I want to see that. I want to see if people are going to be impartial. I want to see if people here will be impartial.
It did get a scumball. So...
Scumball episode? 4 out of 5.
I don't even know what that qualifies as. But...
4 out of 5 from Comic Book Fanatic. 2.5 as a finale. For the moment. For the moment.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those episodes you have to think about for a little while to really establish a thought on it.
Victor Chardon.
I know that I...
Yep.
Sorry, keep going.
Victor Chardon says it's a perfect episode. No questions asked. Bits of Jam says 9 out of 10. Camden says 5 4 to 5 out of 5. Lollipop Elephant says 8 out of 10.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the general consensus is that this is a good episode, and it is. It is a good episode. Very good, in fact.
Definitely.
I'm sorry, I can't.
It's disappointing, but good.
I can't read.
Yeah.
I can't read. Is that Russian? Sorry, I can't read your name. But this person says 10 out of 10. Boomba Bear says 10 out of 10, and 3 out of 10.
It's a good username. I wish I came up with Boomba Bear before I came up with Mattalamode. I feel like.
I have no regrets with the one and only
The alliteration is fantastic.
My goodness, you're gonna turn into the next Shadow Streak, are you? He's also fond of it. He's also fond of alliteration.
It's a good thing to have. I have a little bit, admittedly, but it just works, you know? It's catchy. There's a ring to it.
9 out of 10 from Lily LPS. 8 out of 10 from Leah T-Toon.
Got a 1 out of 10 from Sodden Grider.
9.5 from Ziggy. Oh, Miles per hour. Right. Oh, right. You have fucking Miles from Sonic. Duh. I couldn't see it because
Miles is... Dude, he's on our stream right now.
We're
fucking
Sonic...
Tails is watching us
We're
right now.
Sonic Knuckles, We're Sonic, Knuckles, Silver, Amy, and, Rouge, and all the other, wacky characters.
Probably stuck in another disappointing game. I don't know.
Oh, well. Sucks to be them. Okay, so the next thing we want to talk about is, so we've covered all of the final batch of episodes. We've talked about the Inquisition and the context of series finales. And I do believe we've talked about the hypothetical movie to a degree.
As much as we can, really.
I think we can expand on that a little bit. So, shut up! It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I just know it. I can feel it in my bones. Just watch. You'll see. You'll see. Or so the most manic of Gumball fans say. I mean, I'm a pretty big Gumball fan, but but I wouldn't call myself that manic.
Yeah. I really do think that there is a 50-50 shot, and I am cautiously optimistic about it because, you know, there's no reason they shouldn't get a movie if CN's just throwing movies left and right. Like, who's actually going to watch We Bear Bear movies? I don't know. Like, I don't. I know that We Bear Bears is a good show, but who's gonna actually go see that movie if they don't really know anything about the show? And the same thing is with Gumball, but that leads me to believe that if We Bear Bears can get one, then Gumball should definitely get one. Just kind of handing out the rights to movies, so I hope that continues enough to get to Gumball.
I wonder if no, I don't think that at this point. I don't think a Gumball movie is going to see a theatrical release. If it does, that would be a fucking miracle.
It might be like kind of like what regular show got, whereas shown in select theaters maybe. I don't know. It's definitely like Teen Titans Go got lucky because it's, you know, built out of a known franchise, which means that it's going to work on a level of people who like the show for some reason and people just know the characters.
And the entity behind Teen Titans Go is largely Warner Brothers, not so much Cartoon Network.
That's true. Yeah.
Plus, the movie itself was actually pretty good.
I haven't seen it.
It was actually pretty damn good. The mixed feelings towards that movie, towards the show aside. Yeah. Okay, so speaking of movies, this is actually going to tie into one of the a potential topic or bullet point that we were going to go into. We actually planned to have Awestruck Vox of the Roundtable be make a guest appearance on this podcast / live stream, but as happy as he was to do it, he actually has commitments tonight, so that's unfortunate, but c'est la vie. I referenced his Everything Wrong with the Gumball Finale video in my editorial, and one of the points that he brought up that I brought up is what Matt brought up a while ago, which is to condense the superfluous episodes in season 6 to make room for this hypothetical movie. And I think at this point that's a pretty universally agreed on alternative decision that the writers could have gone with.
Because that's what everybody was hoping for, because we got 44 episodes, which just seems to suggest that they had something planned. But the fact that it was just more episodes and a lot of them, not a lot of them, but a noticeable amount were of lesser quality is disappointing.
And like I said, would anyone really miss those inferior episodes? I wouldn't.
No.
I really wouldn't.
I don't think... I can't make a case for why you would want a bad episode in place of one that at least tries to do something interesting.
And it's and the fact that season 6 having 44 episodes is quite a discrepancy, seeing as season 1 had 36 and seasons 2 to 5 had 40 each.
Yeah.
And yes, I corrected myself this time.
He got it right. You can't complain about it this time.
I falsely assumed that season 1 had 40 episodes, and I do apologize for that once again for making such a silly oversight. What the fuck?
Yeah, I guess the extra episodes were just to fill out the 4 that season 1 didn't get, which is funny because they might as well have been in season 1 to begin with.
And yes, YOLO, Matt agreed to an appearance by Awestruck Vox. And had he appeared, I would be the mediator to keep things in check. So,
because you know what I said about the BFFs and how I did somewhat enjoy it in a macabre sense. I feel like the same would apply to being able to talk to him, just to kind of put it bluntly. It's just like, if you get the opportunity, sure, I'll hear you out, man. I don't know. I don't have anything better to do right now.
Hey guys, Pie Guy Rules is not here. Pie Guy Rules would have been cool to have on board, but he's not much of a Gumball viewer. He's only seen season 5, which strangely he calls superior to season 1. I guess it's not too unpopular.
Is that strange, though? Because season 5 had a lot of misses, but it also had an equal amount of, like, runaway successes, in my opinion. You have, like, the choices in the console and episodes like that, and you do get a lot of terrible episodes, but I think that it really is a mixed bag, and that the good in it makes it inherently better than season 1.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I guess it's strange in the context that I know that there's a contingent of people who a consortium of people who have mixed opinions on season 5, even more so than with season 1. But that's just me. But anyway,
I feel like a lot of the episodes weren't bad, but even the mediocre ones showed the problems that the season had. And it's just the fact that it had all these issues plaguing episodes that didn't necessarily get weighed down, but just the season as a whole was affected by all these things that didn't have to be, which really means that I think the individual episodes were pretty good, but then as a whole they had so many issues that didn't have to be there.
Well, Kata, Pie Guy has seen a good number of season 1, so it's not that he's seen too little of it to be unqualified to make a judgment call. He's seen enough to be qualified for that. Martin,
does anybody really hate season 5 more than season 1 though? Like, I can't comprehend that.
I can't imagine it. Not really. No.
No.
As for the movie, going back to the topic of the movie, so some potential angles it could go with, and this is gonna be tough without having to cram way too many things into it at once, a la the shitty Spider-Man movies. Not saying all of the Spider-Man movies are shitty, but yeah, just the ones that crammed way too much in.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot to unravel with a show, which it never did in its last legs. Fucking parents. What do you think? What do you think, Matt?
Could you kind of rephrase the question?
So
I'm sorry.
What sort of angle do you think the movie could go with? Like, what would be the main premise?
I mean, I assume that it would kind of pick up immediately where the episode left off, and I assume they would incorporate like what was seen in the Oracle and stuff like that, and it would try to just. I feel like maybe it would actually start from like the moment that they abandon Rob's unconscious body, because you have to kind of build to it a little bit, even though it is inevitable, because there is sort of a general ambiguity to what exactly is happening. And I feel like you can't start a movie without any context unless you're so confident that you have the right audience for it.
Or they remember the context.
Yeah. It's hard to say, though. Because I do hope that if there's a movie that it does end on a happy note, because I feel like if you get an hour and a half, I don't really think it makes sense just to go back to being depressing. But, yeah. That's really the only angle I could have on it, I feel like.
I was thinking perhaps Ben Bocale himself would make an appearance in the movie, and we would get. It would seem kind of phoned in, but I do think it's kind of appropriate given the scale of this movie. Okay.
I do want to take this moment to point out that Ben actually did make a cameo in the last set of episodes, and it was in The Web. So take that as you will.
He did? He made a cameo in that?
Yeah.
Really?
In the song, there's like a gif of a guy shrugging, which I think was just his candid reaction to The Web being written, and they decided to put it in the episode during the song.
Oh, wow.
So that's what you get.
So the episode has his blessing. Oh.
Well, it is
his show.
His frustrations. I don't know how he feels about it. I would assume that he doesn't have any strong opinions of it out of the way. But, yep. At least he got on.
Here's a question for everyone here, including you, Matt. Do you think it would be cliched for that movie to end with a flash forward to Gumball and Penny leading a married life and breaking the status quo of Gumball being perpetually youthful? Do you think that would be too cliched, or do you think it would feel deserved?
I've always kind of had a few problems with doing that, just because it's such an overdone idea. Like, remember, Regular Show ended with that, and it was sweet, and I guess earned, but that trope always kind of feels just with me. I don't know about phoned in, but it just feels like obligatory. I feel like they could probably pull it off, because I do have faith in them and their ability to write things more than a lot of other shows.
Totally cliche.
He's not lying.
Glass says it is cliched, but well deserved.
It depends on what the movie does, I feel like, which determines how I feel about it, because
the only thing
cliches can work if they really transcend just doing what they're doing, you know?
Yeah,
which is the point of a cliche. Because they think they can get a better angle on it, but oftentimes they don't.
Which is the point of a cliche. The only way the movie can fuck this up is if they do nothing with Gumball and Penny whatsoever. But with given the scale, what is it? What's so funny?
Because I see that as being a possibility. Like, we're on the path. Let's be fair. She had a good run. She got to romantic, then she just kind of stopped trying.
Huh.
I feel like she would be in the movie, but maybe not to a massive capacity just because she doesn't seem to be that interesting to the writers. But you never know.
Oh my god. You're being called out for how you pronounced GIF. So instead of Giffany from Gravity Falls, it's Giffany.
It's GIF. Did I not say GIF before?
You did.
Shit. Okay, good, because I stand by that. GIF is correct. You can be a little bitch about it if you want. I don't care. The guy who came up with it said it's pronounced GIF like the peanut butter, and there's nobody else you should listen to when it comes to terminology than the guy who made the frickin' word. So all you guys are saying GIF, you can shut up, okay?
Wow.
You're wrong.
We've never seen this.
I'm off. I'm going off. No script, okay? You guys are stupid.
Wow.
So let's just see how much the viewership drops with that.
Wow, thanks. You
I
just
stand
made
by
my
it.
viewership plummet.
This is what you get, Martin. You get a wild card on the stream. You never know what's gonna happen.
But anyway, so we want to do the other thing we want to do, and I guess we can just consolidate all the bullet points we have in this document together, and try to get as much of it done in as timely a manner as possible. But for now, what we want to do now is we want to run down each season. We've made a bit of a blurb on season 5, and I think and I say we can continue that with the other seasons, starting with season 1. So, I've already talked about this with Jam, like I said. Prototypical in nature, well-meaning, but and ambitious, but it doesn't quite follow through on its strengths.
Yeah.
That's the general gist of what I have to say about season 1.
I can't really blame season 1 for being as weak as it was, because obviously this is a show that had a lot of inexperienced writers, you know, and that's exciting because that means that there's going to be a freshness inherent to everything about its writing.
Yep.
But the problem is that season 1, they were trying to figure out what they were doing. So I respect the fact that, you know, it was all about learning. And I do feel like there are some good episodes to come out of it. We both did a piece about The Curse, for instance, which I think still holds up as a great episode of the show, not just the season.
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
But I feel like as a whole, it's definitely the weakest season, in my opinion, by a pretty decent margin. But not one that I can outright hate just because of the circumstances behind it.
Still in all, that's not to say that the season is exempt from criticism whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the glaring faults of this season really stand out, like how it's trying to ape a lot of already established animated series, especially within the genre of comedy. But I think it's more pronounced here because of how inexperienced Ben and his ragtag team were.
Yeah. It feels like any other show, I feel like, it has a pretty good cast, but the writing didn't have the sort of signature cynicism that the show would end up getting in the next season. So the only thing that really made it stand out, I feel like, was the visual appeal of it, which is obviously an amazing selling point, and which helped it retain some of its fans, though it also meant that when it changed so drastically, not everybody was on board, and that definitely affected the show's popularity in the next few years, which really didn't become a huge thing until season 5.
Yep. And I argue and I argued this in my video with Jem, that it's a good thing that season 1 didn't set the expectations way too high. Like, it didn't play its best cards just yet. Because had that been the case, then a lot of the episodes would just pale in comparison so hard, and it would leave very little room for improvement for the show.
I mean, do you think that they're saving ideas for later seasons, or that they're just writing what they consider to be good ideas at the time?
I don't know if they were. I wouldn't really say they were saving ideas for a later point in time. No, I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah. I just feel like the weirdest thing is that season 2 immediately is like so much better. Like, the remote is better than literally every season 1 episode, and just the first one right out the gate. So it's. I wish more than anything else that I was a fly on the wall the moment they started trying to conceive season 2, because there was such a shift, and it was good in literally every possible way, I feel like.
Yeah, it was. Regarding season...
I will say that... sorry, you can keep going. You're talking about season 1 still.
Regarding season 1, I noticed that while I'm pretty much in line with other people's opinion that this is the weakest season of the show by far, I think there are some outliers that I enjoy that either have not aged well in other people's perspectives, or they just flat out don't like. Like the dress. It's one episode that a lot of people seem to have a problem with, but
yeah,
I actually quite enjoy that.
I do. It's so hard for me to really explain why. I know I wrote a huge, sprawling post about it a while back, but that was a while back. And I did kind of phone in some of those. But I do sincerely love the dress. I feel like it's just an episode they just went with a very cliched idea, but they really made it their own because they thought about how to subvert it in a lot of ways.
And it's...
And that...
And, I'll go on.
No. I'm sure you have something with more input than I do.
I think, and I'm pretty sure I've stated this previously as well, but I think episodes like this are a precursor to the jadedness and cynicism that the show would eventually adapt, because Gumball is steering into the naivete of his fellow classmates, and exploiting it for his own personal gain, and that's something that would not feel completely out of place in any of the later seasons of the show, really.
Yeah, and I like the fact that he actually had legitimate consequences on a psychological and moral level, because there is a theme of episodes like The Picnic where they're just doing dumb things and facing consequence, but I like that it's more on the more like an internal level than just flat out we're lost in the woods or robbing a convenience store. I feel like there's certainly a more well thought out level that they're putting into it.
And I have a feeling that had this episode been part of any of the later seasons, I think we'd see a much darker take on this. Although you could argue honestly, that the imagined spot of Gumball and Darwin getting married and having kids is pretty dark. Maybe that's one.
Yeah. I don't even know if it would really work for later seasons. I feel like it would get a lot of flack, but I think that it is kind of the perfect season 1 episode in that it really takes advantage of the point that all the characters are at. It's very circumstantial, it has a time and a place, and I think that with the criteria that season 1 episodes tend to follow, it works.
Well, I'm not saying that the episode could work in any other season in its in the state that it was shown. Of course, there would be some major adjustments to be to be had.
Yeah, definitely. I don't even know how to imagine it being in a later season, because the premise is just that sorry, somehow everybody is so dumb they think that Gumball in a dress is a different person entirely. So I think that it really was deeply exploiting the more naive level of the writing, but I think they did it in a clever way.
Yeah. The dress started the Gumwin ship. Oh my god. God, why?
Oh shit, you're right. You're right.
Oh,
it
God.
did.
Good lord. Good fucking lord. So you mentioned season 2.
Yes, and for full disclosure, I think it's not the most perfect season, but it's the season that I love the most and that I can come back to and just fall in love with.
It's my second.
Most.
It's my second favorite season, behind season 4. Just because of the sheer leap it was from season 1, and this has become a like a motto for me. Like, well, not, I don't know if motto is the right word, but a standard that I live by. If something becomes so drastically different and for the better in its lifespan from what it used to be, then that is something I cannot just brush away, because it's done something. It has to have done something right to have triggered that not spontaneous, that that fateful change.
Yeah.
So,
I don't feel like it came out of nowhere, because even in season 1, I feel like there are episodes like The End and The Dress and even the first one, the DVD, where they do show a lot of thought towards how they're going to make the humor. But I do think that season 2 really found a way to up the ante in every way, because they had a better grasp on its characters, they had more of an angle with its humor that it just ran with, and there was really this attitude of just saying fuck it and doing everything they wanted, which I really, really respect to death.
Yep.
Because nothing was off limits. It was crazy.
Yes, Boomba Bear, that episode came from that season.
Yes.
And that's the only blight of that season, really.
There are problems with season 2 in terms of occasionally taking things a little bit too far. I don't think that it was ever a massive issue. I totally understand why people would hate episodes like The Hero and The Limit, though.
I think it's this episode. Sorry, not episode. I think this season is the equivalent of giving a child some kind of birthday or Christmas present, and them going completely out of control with it at times.
Yes. I think of it like a newscaster just decides he's not going to read the teleprompter anymore, and he's just kind of spouting whatever the hell he wants, except he kind of makes sense sometimes.
But sometimes he shoots his own foot.
Yeah, but I feel like episodes like The Hero definitely have problems with their writing, but it's kind of a necessary step you have to take to learn, right?
Yeah,
and
definitely it is.
They took away from that how to refine their humor and more emotional moments, and you see that in season 3, which we're going to get to in a little bit.
And for the record, regarding The Hero, I have no apologies to make about that review. So anyone who thinks that I should get rid of my review, or that I'm an asshole or an idiot for feeling the way I do about that episode, fuck off. Fuck off.
Yeah.
My opinion does not hurt your enjoyment of that episode. So, get fucked. That's all I gotta say. But the number of you who have engaged in some insightful discussion, whether you agree or disagree with me, I can respect you. You have my respect.
Yeah, I respect if you have a different opinion than I do. That's kind of how you learn, right? Is that you see what other people have to think. Because I was a lot higher on The Hero initially, but then, I did a little article with a guy, and we went back and forth over it, and you become a lot more aware of the flaws that it has, and you have to kind of reconsider a lot of aspects of it. So I do think that it's passable. I don't think that
Didn't you acknowledge me in that article?
I probably did, yeah.
I think you have. I think you have a couple of
them.
I think you have kind of. You just oofed like 200 people. No, I'm not oofing people who who respectfully disagree with me. I'm oofing people who
take the opinion at face value and just don't really
who are being
have any receptiveness to it. Yeah.
And also, I should on that tangent, Kiwi Farms very briefly talked about me for having Mr. Enter cameo in that review. I have no apologies about that either. So, of course I'm gonna keep my review. I'm not crazy or anything. Anyway, so that's season 2 in a nutshell. Well, kinda. No one's gonna agree with me, but I actually enjoy the artistic changes from season 1 to season 2. Like, I think people were complaining about I don't know if they were legit complaints because
the stilted animation and stuff like that.
I don't know if people were just going, "Oh, change! I hate change! Get it away from me!" and whatnot, or if they were being legit with their criticisms. But I actually enjoy the look that season 2 adopted and would carry on to the next few seasons because of the more straight-lined, pointed-ish based aesthetics that season 1 went with. I don't know. They didn't seem way too pleasing to me. I think the more rounded based designs kind of fit the comedic vibe of the show much better. Plus the designs are much more adorable. Well, most of them anyway were much more adorable.
I miss the oval eyes. I'm saying hot take. Oval eyes are the best look, man.
Oval eyes?
Yeah, dude, they all had ovular eyes for season 2, and then they started being round in season 3.
I know about the oval eyes, but I didn't know you were fond of them.
Best look. And part of it's definitely that season 2 is what really sold me on the show, right? And everything about it factored into that. And like, I liked the animation was more restrained. The look was, some people thought, overcomped. I know a lot of the crew was complaining a lot about all the excessive lighting effects, but it looks super pretty, so I can't complain much.
That's the. And I will say that's really the only. That's the only problem that the season has visually, like with regards to the lighting. I think a lot of shots tend to be quite a little darker than they should be, and and it kind of.
I do love, like, they don't do enough sunsets anymore because that's where a lot of the lighting came in. Is that there's this really rich, luminous orange hue of everything that I loved, but they don't really do that anymore. So it's a minor weird complaint, but I did love the effect that it had on like the just the overall mood and aesthetic.
It's very ambient. Very ambient.
It is. They were very attentive to the kind of ambiance that they wanted.
Thankfully, it was it still exists in the next few seasons, but not quite to the degree of season 2.
Yeah. I also just want to point out that there are a lot of people who are kind of annoyed at season 2, especially early on, had a lot of jokes that are kind of based on looping animation. Like in the Nights, they have Tobias slap Gumball with a glove for like 5 seconds, and then they have the Promise where like they keep refreshing the computer. I'm curious about like how you feel about that approach to using their animation to factor into the jokes.
I guess it only works as a joke, but as an actual bit of animation, then nah. I have my reservations towards it.
I will say that it is kind of lazy, and I feel like at times they were trying to fill up their runtime. But I love jokes that just loop until they become unfunny and then somehow funny again. I feel like season 2 really nailed that a lot. So that's my unpopular opinion.
Actually, I can't quite remember that, so Anyway, season 3.
Season 3.
The beginning of the era with Jacob Hopkins and Terrell Ransom Jr.
Season 3.
Actually, I want to kick off this part of the discussion by asking you guys, Which Gumball and Darwin pair of voice actors do you guys prefer? Logan Grove and Kwesi Boki, or Jacob Hopkins and Terrell Ransom Jr.?
I will say that I think my favorite actors are always going to be Logan and Kwesi. I just feel like, because they contribute a lot to the tone of the show. That's what all the VAs do, is that they indirectly affect what direction the show goes for because of how deeply their personality shows through in their voices. Because season 2 was a lot more restrained. Like, later seasons had them doing more funny voices and kind of acting more wacky, but season 2 was super grounded. They could be sick, evil people, but they just had this cadence that I found to be fantastic.
Yeah, there was a sense of control in their performances, especially as their voices matured.
They just feel believable. Like, I feel like Jacob and Terrell and Nicholas and Danielle and Christian J. Simon, they all leaned into the more comic nature of being in a cartoon, but Logan and Kwesi were just like, what are you gonna do, man? Just two kids stuck here doing shit, and I loved it.
Yeah, I guess. Oh shit, Pan Pizza's streaming too. Wow, it's streaming season tonight. Okay, so we got some people saying Jacob and Terrell. We got some people saying Logan and Kwesi. Never pay attention to the VAs. Glass, come on, don't do me like that. Don't do me like that. You know me by now.
This is one question. You're ruining the stream.
Well, I'm kidding.
We gotta cancel it now.
Yeah, I brought up this question because I'm a VA aficionado. As for season 3, like I said, it's the most consistent by far. I can't really say there's an outright bad episode from this season. The quality. Oh, actually, fuck that. No. The Bros is utter shit. But that's the only one.
No. What? How could you think that? I love The Bros, man.
You do?
Yeah, dude. I mean, not like affectionately, but I really think it's a strong episode.
You think it's a strong episode?
I do. I think it's a strong freaking episode. I'll stand by that.
We should have added that to the unpopular opinions bullet.
I mean, here's the thing: is I get why you wouldn't like it because Darwin is like being this really atrocious, out of character like alpha male, but I think that I really liked it because it showed that the show is legitimately attentive to the character arc that Penny was going through. I really enjoyed that they had episodes like The Burden and The Bros that showed the time and place and how that shift in the status quo actually affected how the characters were thinking and stuff like that, because as we moved on past that point, that never became a component of the show. And whenever something huge like the Matchmaker would happen, it was followed by episodes that barely acknowledged it, or if they did, it was just like, yeah, they're a couple, but they didn't actually reflect on how that affected everybody else in the scenario. So even though The Bros shows Darwin to be not a very likable character, I do like that it actually showed the time and place, I feel like, which is something that the show never takes advantage of enough.
It's a silver lining for you.
I don't think there's really too many negatives. I think it's silver. No lining.
Well, I just cannot stand. Well, the uncharacteristic nature of Darwin, of course, is a big point to talk about, and the other is the logic behind said jealousy. Darwin fearing that Penny is replacing him in a part as that Penny is replacing him as a part of Gumball's life that that only he can fill. Like he's conflating brotherly love with romantic love, and it gets lost in translation. Not as bad as the Revolt, I'll admit, but it just falls apart on the basis of that. Oh, Mia agrees with you.
I also see some people in the comments saying that season 3 does have some not great episodes, and I agree. There are episodes like, as Exist Dragon brought up, The Coach, which just sort of happened pleasantly but then end. There's also The Society, which felt kind of off. But I never think they drop to, like, really deep levels of badness. At worst, they're just kind of pleasant, but they end. I feel like that's what I like a lot about season 3, is that it never really does anything dramatic, I feel like, but it's just so careful. There's a lot of attention to detail, and they keep bringing out really solid episodes. It's definitely the most consistent season, I feel like.
It played it safe with its overall tone, I'd say. You'll notice
But there
that
are some episodes, too, that just go crazy, so it's like a mix.
you'll notice that that the cynicism introduced in season 2 is far more toned down in season 3. It's still there.
It pretty much feels like it's almost entirely gone, which I don't mind, because, you know, time goes on, your perspective changes, obviously. Season 2 is just like an angsty teenager, and then it becomes a more
Thank you for
self-aware
not saying edgy. I'm getting tired of that word, honestly.
I definitely don't think season 2 was edgy. I think that it was occasionally provocative, but it never did it for attention. It did it because that's how it wanted to be. You know?
Yep. Yuppity yup.
It was blazing its own trail.
And also, I should mention that this is the season where we really saw hints of the show's ambition as far as serialized storytelling goes.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people, I'm not sure if it's a lot, there are quite a number of people who don't really care much for the serialized storytelling in the show. And I have to ask that question once again that I asked in my editorial. If Gumball really was a through and through triggered is more overused than edgy. If Gumball really was a through and through comedy show, then why would Ben waste his time making such grandiose narratives in the first place?
Yeah. I think Gumball is an ambitious show, but on the occasion it never really comes to terms with the long-standing effects of that ambition. And that's evident, obviously, in how they handle Penny and Carrie, and how Rob kind of just shuffles around up until the future happens. But I think a lot of it comes from also the fact that even though they've been working on the show for 8 years, there's still people who haven't really been in the industry forever, you know? The people who kind of just do their own thing. They're very much outside of the cartoon ecosystem, I feel like. And I think that definitely just affects how they perceive things and how they understand things. And while it usually works out pretty well, it does lead to occasional disappointments.
Right. On the topic of serialized storytelling, that actually segues into season 4, which is where the serialized storytelling really kicks off. I mean, not really kick off, but goes is cranked up
It
to
actually
11.
shows that it's going in a more dramatic, cinematic direction.
And this is where the this is where the bulk of the criticism towards the serialized storytelling comes from, just because of how intent the season was to do it. And I really don't have a problem with that. If it means elevating the show to a new height or a new direction that we've never seen any show like it go to before, then I am all aboard for it. And
Sorry, I got distracted by a comment from Glass.
Jeez, Glass, why? Oh, God.
I don't know how my mic sounds, by the way, so hopefully it's not terrible and I'm not just ruining the stream, but I assume that if it's been going on for like 2 hours and there haven't been any complaints about how terrible I sound, that
it's good.
we're doing pretty good.
It's good.
Okay, thank God.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, I'll try not to. But season 4, I agree with a lot of what you're talking about. It's definitely a season that's... I feel like season 3 was a lot more intent on kind of just sticking with the water sense, but season 4 is definitely when it starts to branch out and explore other characters. Like, there's a lot of Hot Dog Guy who just comes out of nowhere, and he has a lot of episodes I think are great. A lot of people don't like them, but they definitely are distinct. You have episodes like The Wicked, and even if they're bad, like The Apprentice, they at least try to take advantage of the cast that generally feels underutilized.
And also The Fury, one of the best episodes from the season.
Obviously.
And I mentioned that, you know, with that episode, despite Yuki being a standalone character and for the most part one-off character, who's
Pretty
supposed to
much
be there just to
one-off, yeah.
just to be an antagonist to Nicole. She still manages to be a good character in her own right. Like, she has a lot of good moments herself without really having to use the Watersons as too much of a crutch. And with the whole fleshing out of characters, it honestly started with season 2, but I guess you could say it escalated the further the season went. I mean, sorry, the series went.
Yeah.
There were some meaningful character developments in season 2, but not quite to the degree of seasons 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you for correcting me, guy. I never knew how to pronounce that kid's surname. Boichi. Okay. Thank you very much.
It's good. I never learned. That's why I kind of avoid saying it. But that's good to know. Yeah.
You
don't want to get this stuff wrong.
Yep. As for things that have been built up over the course of the series, the self-awareness and the meta level humor are two other aspects that that have seen such progression.
I feel like it's hard to say if season 4 is really the most dedicated to its meta and fourth wall breaking humor, because I do feel like there are traces of that in all the seasons, and you have episodes like The Job from season 2 and The Kids and the Money from season 3, which are
purely meta,
do crazy things, and that's why I love them. I do think that season 4 was definitely the season where they kind of realized that everybody loves it when you do this stuff, though. So they started to lean into it more. Which was always successful, I should point out. It's not until later seasons where that
5 and 6 where they feel obligatory. In this season, the use of the meta sense is actually purposeful.
Yeah. Plus, I definitely think that season 4 too is when they kind of started to explore more cinematic stuff, because you have episodes like The Scam and The Disaster. And then The Detective, which I will never shut up about, which all you guys should watch, because I know none of you like it, but it's legitimately one of my favorite episodes.
It's a good episode.
Thank you. It's so good. And it's one of those episodes that I just am so enamored by, because A, it has this amazing narrative, B, it uses Anais, who's very underutilized, so well, and C,
the cinematography
as it already, but the cinematography is amazing. It's
the grayscale,
mind-blowing.
The grayscale touch, the use of fuck, I forgot that term. There's it's an effect in fucking Premiere Pro, and I forgot what it's called. Iris, the use of a feathered iris, and the varied camera shots and angles. Yeah.
Plus, it's something that, like, when, like, the scenes are more frantic too, the camera is always kind of moving slightly, and I feel like that's such a small but specific touch that just adds to the atmosphere a lot. Because I feel like most episodes don't really take advantage of the cinematic possibilities that Gumball has. But then you see Detective and you're like, why can't they always be doing stuff like this?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
And regarding the meta sense, that's pretty much my attitude going into the compilation, which I remember you saying that you weren't exactly fond of.
It's definitely in my my bottom 20 for the series.
Bottom 20.
I feel like.
Dang.
It's not that it's
in my top 50.
Bad, but well, it was in your top 10 recently.
Yes.
I was like, wait a minute. But my problem with it is that it just feels listless. There's not really a sense of ambition to it. It's like they kind of noticed that vignette episodes are easy to write instead of making it intelligent. They're just like, it's a compilation now, literally. Mm-hmm. And most of the bits weren't even that good. So
the beauty with an episode like this, though, is that it really they bring out different interpretations from different people, and I guess it's just my interpretation of it that's led to my enjoyment of the episode. But yeah, mm-hmm. I took the disjointed nature of the vignettes as an illumination of what the series is. Like in all of its apparent disjointedness, through the different types of media that the show uses, there's still harmony and cohesion to be found within that apparent discord, and it's encapsulated by the song at the end, because of and it brings the whole concept of individuality and being different and all that sort of stuff together.
Yeah, I can kind of see how the song at the end is supposed to tie everything together, but I just feel like it feels kind of like they had the song in mind and they just didn't know where to put it. So I don't see that much of the thematic similarities, especially because a lot of the vignettes of the episode are actually, in my opinion, some of the weakest vignettes the show's ever done.
I think one of them was shown on the Elmore Stream It YouTube channel before it was rebranded, and good Lord knows what the fuck's going on with it.
They did that a couple of times. I know in the past they did like the bacteria song in the ward, and they did in the tape. They had Carrie's 3D test. I don't think the compilation had any of those though.
Huh.
So I might be wrong. I don't watch that episode very often. So yeah. I also feel like the song doesn't even make sense in the context of the episode being a quote-unquote Elmo Stream It compilation. So it's just kind of like a weird turn to take,
I suppose. But of course, the meta sense of that episode pales in comparison to that of the disaster and the rerun. And since we're talking about those episodes, we will be segueing into season 5 shortly. So yeah, disaster and the rerun. Oh my god, such a masterpieces of episodes.
I will say I do have some unpopular opinions in the sense that I do feel like with those episodes the show kind of did play its cards a bit too soon, which led to this very strange period of time from season 5 to like the middle point of season 6. They just didn't know what the hell they were doing with Rob.
It's a holding pattern.
It wasn't great. But the episodes are they're obviously amazing episodes.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The ambiguous quality of the direction after these episodes, they're still some of the best in modern day Cartoon Network programming. It's groundbreaking. It's such a huge risk, and oh my god, it's just so brilliant. It really, it's similar to the Inquisition in that it really makes you evaluate the seeming impermanence of these works of fiction, because there's that's an ongoing theme in the realm of fiction, is that the author is mortal, but their work is immortal, is potentially immortal, and this pair of episodes really sheds light on that principle, but it's not quite the light you'd expect it to shine.
Yeah.
And like I said,
honestly, I haven't watched the episodes enough, so I probably have to watch them more. Because there are some episodes that I hold so highly that I just don't really revisit them that much because it kind of lessens the impact for me.
Well,
I feel like
this is supposed to be part of the Robin Void arc, so replay value will be. Well, replay value in the context of television, anyway, not video games. Replay value will be considerably lower compared to a standalone episode.
I don't know if it'll have the ongoing appeal just because it's not as accessible. Though I do think that I don't know. I think it's appreciated just as it should be.
I will say
that I don't know how well it'll hold up.
And I said I compared these episodes to Undertale quite a few times, and that's another piece of media that uses its metasense not just for comedic value, although it does do that on occasion, but it uses its metasense to conduct a sort of evaluation on our attitudes towards this particular type of media. And that's always something I appreciate. Something that really helps others reevaluate the way they look at things, not just give something for them to be entertained by.
Yeah, I can see that.
I don't know if you've played Undertale and you're familiar.
I have not actually. I haven't played too many games recently. I probably should, but I just kind of got sucked into the cult of television, I guess.
Don't let the fan base scare you. That's only.
I try not to. I mean, there's a reason they have that big of a fan base, right? That should stand for itself.
Yeah. I still think Rob throwing the remote into the void is a stupid move on his part. Anyway, so we talked about the disaster and the rerun. And with the rerun being the season 5 premiere, I guess we can talk about season 5 now. Yeah, you talked about a little bit about that. Actually, we talked about season 5 just a little bit a while ago.
Yeah.
I think I've said pretty much all I can say about season 5, but I guess for the sake
I feel like my opinion of the season has actually gone up a little bit. I remember I wrote a pretty sprawling piece about it a while back that pointed out all of the issues that it had. And I do stand by the fact that it does have significant flaws. Its sense of humor in terms of the referential jokes it makes tend to be terrible and explicit. And I feel like older episodes, when they did stuff like that, they did it through a parodic sense, but then with season 5 and 6, you see them just using explicit terms and real-life things that just feels incorrect. And that always drew me out of it.
And it
I feel like.
and that completely supports my my argument that a lot of these references and nods and commentaries are just obligatory. Like, they're being done for the sake of being done instead of being used for any real meaningful purpose.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, compare. Yeah, go on.
Keep going.
Like, I made the comparison between shit. I don't know if I've actually done this, but Wait, I have. I've actually compared the console to the line from both from the same season, and I talked about how the references in the console didn't obstruct the narrative of the episode, but instead enhanced it, while the references in the line were completely intrusive.
Yeah, the line... Part of the problem is that I have not seen anything Star Wars related, which hopefully doesn't offend anybody. I know it's good, I just haven't seen it. But the fact that I watched it and that I just noticed the references in how explicit they were and how graceless they were is not a good sign for the episode. There's not any thought backing any of it up. It's just kind of like, hey, let's make Darwin say the thing that Jar Jar Binks says. And then he says the thing that Admiral Akbar says. And then, I don't know, trash compactor, pun humor. It's bad.
And even more egregiously, the uncle, which just bombards you with video game reference after video game reference, and relentlessly, might I add.
See, I think I am a bit more lenient towards the uncle because it does have two amazing things going for it. A, the stuff involving Ocho and Gumball in terms of how insane Ocho is could have been the backbone of the episode and it would have worked a ton better. And then B, you have the song at the end, which is one of the best songs the series has ever made, that it kind of just redeems a lot of the shittier parts of the episode. But the issue is just the fact that the references don't need to exist. You know?
They do not.
And it is nice to kind of have that recognition, but once you're past that, it's like, why is Gumball whistling the Pokemon route theme? No.
And also, gotta keep in mind, when people revisit the show 10 years from now, they're gonna have to ask themselves, was this really a thing back then? Instead of saying to themselves, holy shit, this is actually not that bad.
Stuff like what the uncle does and what episodes like The Best do and The Worst by an extension, they really haven't aged well at all. Sometimes they weren't good at the time, but that just makes them worse in the future. So it's always a weird act of compromising the identity of the show to try to get these attention-grabbing ideas into play. And I feel like they don't do them out of laziness. They legitimately try. Like, I see the line and I recognize that it was sort of like a massive passion project.
I'm not going to say that those references were lazily cobbled together, but they were still cobbled together pretty haphazardly.
I feel like the writers always have sincere intentions. It's just a matter of sometimes those intentions not being well executed.
Intentions do not equal writing ability.
Of course.
And this obligatory...
It's just a shame because of how great the writing uniformly is when you see episodes that just are written so terribly, just basically coming out of nowhere.
The worst. God, what a shit episode that was.
Please don't remind me of that episode. That was like... My complaints about it put me on the map, basically. There's a dot on my head right now with that episode.
This is what happens when you give someone an inch. They will take not just a mile, but an entire fucking continent.
I do feel like The Worst is probably the episode most emblematic of the issues that Season 5 has. Which is... It's always unfortunate when you see an episode you're like, yep, that epitomizes everything, but it just kind of does.
Yet still in all, the X somehow remains to be the worst episode of that season. And I know you're going to disagree with me.
Probably.
Actually, we can get into that right now.
I don't think I have a lot of people on my side, but yeah.
You have a few. So I think this will be an even matchup.
Well, you never know. I tend to have a lot of outlying opinions in terms of episodes that are either loved a ton or hated a ton.
Actually,
So you never know.
I think what makes the X worse than the worst is that with the worst, that one is like characteristic of everything within season 5, both good and bad. Whereas the X, it's completely out of left field. It's an outlier, and it's something you would not expect and something you didn't want to expect at all.
I feel like the X and the worst is kind of like what we're talking about with the Web and the Revolt, where it's a matter of what you think is more offensive. The show being conceptually bad, or the show being, in terms of characterization, disrespectful to everything else in the grand scheme of things.
But the similarities go further, because, like with the Web, the X, character-wise and conceptually, is bad. Well, that's how I take it.
It's so hard for me to think about because
there is no reason that Gumball should be this obsessed with Rob, especially given what was unraveled in the last bits of the story arc.
I definitely feel like the X is significantly out of character, obviously. Though I think that a lot of that is just a compromise made for the idea of pursuing more of a genre parody in regards to teen romance movies, which I just feel like it's so jarring that I kind of ended up liking it just because of the weird things that it did in trying to like put a spin on the traditional relationship between like a hero and a villain. Mm-hmm. But I totally understand why people hate it, but I just think that the humor really makes it watchable to me in a way that I legitimately enjoy it.
Miles likes the X, so you've got one supporter.
Thank goodness. One man. Also, thank you for bringing up the slap, which is also, by the way, a top 20 episode.
It's okay.
When Martin and me called yesterday to kind of organize our thoughts, I fought to talk about the slap, and he said, I don't have any input. So thank you for bringing it up, just so I can say that I love the slap.
So you can rub it in my face?
I do. Half because of that, and half because I legitimately could watch that episode endlessly, and I'd find it as comedic as I did the first time.
Mm-hmm.
The humor isn't for everybody, but Jesus Christ, they just take the premise and they run with it to hell.
That is true. So we can agree that the X is a bad episode that doesn't represent the entirety of Season 5, while the worst is a bad episode that represents the entirety of Season 5. I think we can add the diet to that category.
God, I forgot about the diet for a second.
Oh God. You didn't want to remember that, did you?
I have regularly tried to block it out of my memory, just because it's an episode that wants to be straight comedic, but the jokes aren't good, and the fact that Richard is so annoying really takes away the impact of it.
And the episode changes gears midway.
Yeah. Thing is, you can make characters unlikable, and it can work. Like, that's why Season 2 was so great, but the problem is that they made him such a broad stereotype of a character, and just having him be like this swole bro who just says stupid things, that there's really a disconnect between, you know, the intelligence of the humor and what they're trying to actually do.
Yeah. It's still a 2 out of 5 for me, that episode.
Okay, Glass is asking a question I don't know how I'm going to answer, but I just want to read it. What is the difference between how the slap and the worst take the premise and run with it to hell? Just that they knew what they were doing with the slap and that they didn't know what they were doing with the worst. I think it also is a problem because the worst is an episode that wants to be doing things exclusively by means of satire, and the satire itself is bad and ill-conceived, whereas the slap is just comic insanity, and I feel like that really makes a huge difference.
Okay, so the final thing we want to discuss is season 6 overall. I do believe this will be the last thing we discuss before we wrap things up, because we're coming up to almost 3 hours now.
I mean, I'm going strong, man. If you want to talk about anything else, all night, basically.
Yeah, I don't think podcast episodes last last beyond 3 hours.
Yeah, but the way I see it is that the watch number dropped and then it came back up a little bit. So
you want to maintain that?
Yeah, man. We're gonna do this till we get to 100. I hope you know that.
Oh God, I feel like
I don't care how long it takes. I don't care if you record me sleeping. Like, it can happen.
So
it has to happen at some
point. You're fucking Mickey Mouse and I'm Pluto, and you're pulling me by my leash. Okay then.
Sure.
Lock. Yeah, you're noticed. So, season 6. What would you say?
We should at least talk about season 6.
Would you say it's better or worse than season 5?
I think that it is a little bit better, because there are, I think, on average, there's a better quality to each of the episodes being made, at least until the end when it started getting really bad for some reason. But it started off incredibly strongly, and even though the middle section got a little bit meandering, I think that there's still enough that kind of motivated you through it, where season 5 just kind of felt like the dire straits.
That being said, a lot of some of the problems that we've seen in season 5 crop up once again in season 6, like I already said in my editorial, with such as the whole disregard for the serialized storytelling. So what the fuck was the Choices, one of the best episodes I've ever seen from any television show, definitely. But what the fuck was the point of it if the parents was gonna be what it is?
Yeah, the parents is a complete head scratcher.
The more I think about that episode, the more tempted I am to lower my score for it.
Yeah. I feel like the issue is just the fact that the writers are trying to be self-aware with an episode that is inherently emotional. And I feel like there is some fun to be had in downplaying emotional moments, but the issue is that the parents is really the worst time to do it, because it's such a serious moment in terms of character development, and then they just fuck it up massively.
Yeah, I know it's not supposed to be... I know we weren't really supposed to expect a continuation to the parents. I thought that there might have been, which led to my disappointment. I meant the choices. What the fuck am I saying?
Oh yeah.
I know we weren't supposed to expect a follow up to the choices. That episode was conclusive and revelatory at the same time. It resolved a lot of things, but left things open ended enough that fan engagement and fan theorizing can really carry that aspect through. But this is one of those cases where it's really better left to fan interpretation, by far. Closing every story arc not in the best way possible, except for the dynamic between the Watterson brothers and the Robinsons, like we already said in our review of The Heart.
It's, gosh, I feel like the episode it doesn't understand the sense of stakes that it's at. And I feel like there's no way that it was ever going to become like as meaningful as the choices, but it was trying to pursue what season 6 had been doing with burying the hatchet in terms of all of its ongoing character arcs, however minor. And I feel like that was one that didn't really even need the closure, and it could have worked, but it didn't because of the direction the show took with it.
Can I just say that I kind of wanted Darwin to smack Gumball in the back of the head a couple more times, not just
harkening back to season 2. Yeah.
Yes. Actually, harking back to that one joke in that episode with Bobbert in it. What was it called in season 5?
Season 5, the loophole?
Yes, that was it.
I don't remember much about that episode.
Yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell. Actually, the other issue that that somewhat cropped back up from season 5 into season 6 is shit, what was it? Oh yeah, the obligatory commentary and references. Not as bad as it was in season 5, but it's still there, and it fucking itches.
I think that it was actually a little bit worse at points because I feel like season 5 I was questioning it, but season 6 they really hammered down with just saying the word instead of implying anything as a joke, and I feel like that never worked. Hence Brony Convention, hence You Straight Yoshi, that guy. None of those work because they're bad jokes, and they kind of go against the sensibilities of the show by just saying, hey, this is suddenly a thing in the universe now of the show.
It has to happen. That's the way seasons 5 and 6 operates. They see something become a trend, they will jump on that bandwagon.
The thing is, I do think that season 6 was generally more successful in terms of its comedy than season 5 was, because there's a lot of episodes that people never talk about, like The Cage, or The Lady, or The Father, that really just push their humor so much. They're hugely comedic episodes that have all these very subtle and non sequitur jokes that just land like crazy. And also, so you see those episodes, it's just like the show just running around, just high-fiving everybody.
And then you have the outlier that actually is a positive example of all those problems I mentioned, like the faith. And you kind of ask yourself, what could this season have been had they been a little bit more committed to actually making a show instead of just making statements? That's a question we'll never get an answer to, I guess.
I do like the general attitude and direction of season 6, though, in terms of trying to feel conclusive. I feel like it definitely feels like a final season of a show. And not just, I'm not saying that as like a diss to its occasional creative burnout, but in the sense they really wanted to give closure to all these characters, even like the most minor things. You gotta throw them a little bone, and they were generally speaking pretty good. They didn't have to exist, but I like that they acknowledged the past that they've had in the show, and they tried to just give an extra one out, even if you didn't really want it. Yep. I like that.
Do you think the possession is some sort of closure on whatever arc the Watterson family were involved in?
I feel like it could... that's hard to think about. It could be somewhat of a bit of closure on the just character of Granny JoJo, because she never really got that much from the show. She always appeared just to kind of
She was just a problem
with
maker.
Nicole.
She was just there to create a problem. Man, I don't like her because of that. So one note. So uninteresting.
I don't know. I thought that she's a fine character. She did her job, and I liked the episode she was in, generally speaking. I just don't think that she ever commanded attention, and she certainly doesn't in The Possession either. Although she does play a nice emotional role in a very poignant episode.
Speaking of that, it's a good thing that the whole aspect of the Watterson family bond remains consistent throughout the whole series, and it's not just a gimmick like all the other experiments that the show has gone with. So we mentioned the possession, and there's also the master, which I thought is another good episode.
Oh yeah.
Superb episode. It's like a 4 out of 5 for me.
I think it's more of a B+ personally because, well, it's hard to describe. It is a very solid episode comedically, and the ending is very well earned, obviously. But I just kind of feel like everything leading up to that final battle that they have just feels kind of like just stuck in a loop in terms of just taking advantage of the inherent humor with everybody in the family kind of trying to get one over the other. And it's fun, but I feel like it is a little bit stagnant until the end.
Right. And also, this is another episode that isn't hampered by its references, but enhanced by it.
I just want to point out, season 6 was straight up the season of Richard. Of all the characters they could have gone with, they chose Richard, and they freaking somehow made him one of my favorite characters in the show out of like literally nowhere.
The Job already did that for me, but yeah, these episodes help.
But I mean, I just want to mention the founder too, because nobody talks about that episode either. But I thought that it was like they stripped him away from everybody else. The kids are barely involved. Nicole has like a supporting role, but he's the only one commandeering that episode, and he just kills it.
The founder. Fuck, I forgot that episode. And you're gonna kill me.
Need a bit of a refresher on that?
Oh, right, that one. That one was pretty fun, but I didn't think too much of it.
I think I'm obsessed with it, personally. It's not, like, mind-blowing. It doesn't deconstruct and reconstruct how you perceive the show, but it's just the show at full effect doing everything flawlessly with what it's given. And I think that deserves a ton of respect. Especially because whenever you give Richard a really high position in the events of an episode, it is an inherent risk because he's like the dumb one. But I think the founder found an angle where he somehow was endearing in all of the stupid ideas he had because he was very sincere about what he was trying to accomplish. Even though they all ended in complete catastrophe.
Right. Shame we can't say the same thing about about Nicole, but we can say the same. We can say the same thing about Anais. The Buddy was a good episode. At least she got that. So it's not a total loss.
I definitely think
as far as
that,
she's concerned.
Season 5 was definitely the season of Nicole, and that was an amazing season for her. But just the shift in focus somehow meant that she kind of got stuck playing some very disappointing roles throughout season 6.
Speaking of Anais, this will be pretty controversial, and this will be kind of a spoiler for my upcoming review of it, but I don't think The Rival was that bad. It's only average. It's only average to me. Like, yeah, that's only because I'm too used to mean-spirited humor. Like, I know what to expect from mean-spiritedness, and like I've lived long enough and been around the block to know what to expect and to take it for what it is. But if I have to mention any issues I have with it, it's not so much its concept, but just its place in the bigger picture of the Watterson family tree. Like, they could have done a lot more with this. It could have been a really nice origin story that tied everything regarding the Wattersons together, but no, let's just make the usual "oh baby is evil" jokes that honestly anyone can see coming from a mile away. It's been done to death.
Yeah, when that episode came out, I know that a lot of people took offense to just the blatantly unceremonious nature of it, and they thought it kind of was degrading of Anais' character. And I was pretty big on it, and I have somewhat lessened my opinion a tiny bit, just because you notice that there's some problems with it, like a reliance on facial humor, and it feels like the plot twist of Annie's not actually being in the box at the end was spilled earlier, which makes no sense at all in a narrative, if you think about it. But I think that it works just as an episode that's comedic. It's not groundbreaking at all, but I like their attempt to kind of have a flashback episode that isn't super saccharine with its emotions. And I honestly didn't have a huge issue with Anais being evil because part of her character is just that she's hyper intelligent, and now it's just a hyper intelligent baby who rationalizes that intelligence by being evil. So I think that it kind of makes sense.
And also, this is another one of my standards, and it's that I don't really mind the rival conceptually because it's supposed to be revisiting the Wattersons' past, and with that sort of situation, you have a lot more leeway with how you write the characters, and the stronger the contrast between the characters' past and present selves is, and the more cohesive you can make the ties between those two selves, then the more profound the character development will be, and the more impactful it will be. So, a good comparison I want to make is this episode, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Powerpuff Girls, the original one from 1998.
Not too familiar. But...
I want to compare this episode to Get Back JoJo from season 4 of that show. So the plot is that Professor Utonium comes to the girls' kindergarten for show and tell. Take your parents to school day. And he shows off this time machine, and the girls end up going back in time to his childhood before he was a brilliant mind, and it showed him as a total snot-nosed brat who you just want to slap across the face. It's just so obnoxious with everything that he did and said, and when he sees his future creations, that sparks the compassion and the intelligence in him, the brilliant impressionable mind in him. And see, that's the sort of contrast I'm talking about. You have the past self who's stupidly bratty for his own good, and the future self, the present self, who's refined and matured in every possible way. That's an example of what I'm trying to say. If that sort of contrast, that sort of well executed contrast can be done, then this sort of jarring characterization is no longer that jarring. I don't know if you agree with me on that, but that's my stance.
I definitely can see that, and I want to kind of pivot the conversation a little bit because Glass said something a while back how she thinks that recent seasons haven't really been too reflective on the family dynamic of
I was about to
Wattersons.
mention that too.
And I'm curious about what your thoughts are on that, because I haven't thought about it much, but I think that she's honestly kind of right about that.
Yeah, it's hard to I'm not going to disagree with that either. It is true. Yeah, the outliers that we got, while amazing, are still outliers. Like, it's so few and far between nowadays that we got a family-centric episode. The last one in general is probably The Master.
Yeah, The Master in the Possession was a bit earlier.
Yeah.
I just think that's just something that the show chose to do, because in seasons 2 and 3, there is a massive family dynamic that plays into things. You have episodes like The Job and The Treasure, which is also another very underrated episode.
That
We
is a good
have
episode.
Even smaller episodes like The Password, which I didn't think were that great, but that still were very focused on the Wattersons as a family. And I feel like when season 4 started, there was an immediate focus more on having adventures that show off the diverse cast of the show. And I
Yeah.
feel like there's definitely a compromise. I don't think that it backfired entirely because we did get some amazing episodes out of that allow for different tones to be chased after. But it is disappointing that there wasn't ever a sense that they were really too interested in pursuing the family dynamic that much further.
Maybe maybe the writers were under the impression that they've explored the family well enough, if not in this season, then in the past seasons, that they really couldn't find much to do with them anymore. All right, good night, Miles.
Yeah. Good night, buddy.
Which I actually kind of disagree with. Just because they're the main characters, supposed to be the main characters of the show, and
Yeah.
there's always going to be something in it for them.
I will say there were a few improvements I noticed. For instance, starting with season 5, Anais became a lot more involved in just kind of like adventures alongside Gumball and Darn. So you see episodes like The Father, for instance, where she's just kind of with them, or The Possession. And I feel like that was a good decision, that if they weren't going to make Annie as part of the direct spotlight, that at least involve her more. But I do think that the family was very fractured, as in they'd either focus on Nicole or focus on Richard, but they very rarely did both. There's never a sense of the family as a complete unit.
Yep. And I do believe we've talked about how the season ended, so there's no need to go back there. But to summarize the seasons in 10 words or less: Season 1, ambitious but not fully realized. Season 2, cynical, brightly colored, but darkly shaded, and God, I'm not doing well so far.
Take your time. Oh God.
Season 3, more controlled and more consistent. Season 4, it's very story centric, story and character centric. Season 5, it's Season 5 is
when the problems start to emerge.
Yep, that's less than 10 words.
That's good.
I'd say Season 5 is complacency.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with complacency, by the way. I just think that when they don't just work on being right early, instead just focus on kind of taking advantage of the fact they don't have to try, it's when it just becomes a problem.
And Season 6, the final stand, close yet so far. So close yet so far. And that is basically a summation of every single season of The Amazing World of Gumball. Would you agree or disagree with me, Matt?
I think that for the most part, I agree. I think that I'm definitely a bit more lenient towards season 6, just because I feel like while there are some very frustrating things about it, that as a whole it was a good note to end on, in that it kind of acknowledged the mistakes of season 5 to some extent. Didn't fix all of them, and stuck with some of the more annoying ones, but that it actually kind of showed an interest in improving a little bit. So I like that about it.
Yep. And whenever you guys finish the discussion on Season 6... the weirdo. Guy,
It was bound
is
to
Guy
come up at some point.
is Guy
wasn't it?
trolling us, or is he being serious?
I don't think so. Because we're definitely two people who have outlying opinions on the episode. I feel like.
Yeah. Funnily enough, Mr. Enter considers The Weirdo to be the worst episode of the show.
That's not. That I would never go that far, but I definitely think that it's not great.
It's interesting to hear what he has to say about it. As far as our thoughts are concerned, I already gave mine. It's well-meaning, but I think it suffers from generalization.
Yeah. The thing about The Weirdo is that I legitimately respect it to death, and I wish that I could love it because it does have a legitimacy to what it's trying to do, and it cares about what it's doing. But I think that the fact that we're working with Sussy means that we don't get to the depth that we really need to see the premise work as it should.
And
she doesn't really do any good.
And
plus the song, I don't like the song at all. Oh, it's a headache of a song.
It's okay. The art shift changed it. I mean, saved it a little bit. Oh yeah. What I said about Sussy's awareness of her bullying kind of puts her situation in a pretty bad light. Like, she knows she's being abused, and she's happily accepting her abuse, and
I don't think that she's accepting it. I think that she tolerates it. She's trying to be the bigger person. And I think that's a nice sentiment, even though it does feel a little bit mean-spirited at times.
But that's the thing. This and the other statements that Sussy is pushing are not characteristic of every single person with mental health issues. It's not.
I feel like people talk a lot about The Weirdo as sort of a discussion on mental health. I don't know if I entirely agree with that. I think of it more as a discussion on individuality, because I don't know. I get that Sussy feels like a character who is who has a lot of mental issues, but
there's a correlation.
I don't really.
There is a correlation between well, not so much a correlation, but individuality and mental health issues do tend to be blurred together on occasion.
Yeah.
And which is why
I feel like. Sorry, you can keep talking. I keep interrupting.
Which is why I say that it's not really it's not too accurate to speak on behalf of every single person who's had mental health issues, just because every single case is different from the other. Some more complex than others, in fact.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think the episode really does anything too wrong. I just feel like as a whole it doesn't really work because Sussy doesn't have that sort of emotional depth that you would want with a message as potent as the one that it tries to pursue.
I guess they were trying to develop her the way other characters have been developed in their own episodes centered on them.
Yeah.
But
anyway. I wish I could like it. I really do. I wish that I don't know. I really admire what it's trying to do. I just can't get on board with it.
Right. So there you go, guys. That is our hot takes on The Weirdo. And I don't know if it's exactly hot because of how droll my voice is sounding tonight or this afternoon. I live in Australia. But yeah, that is I do believe that is the discussion on the amazing world of Gumball between myself and Mattalamode. For those who missed a substantial part of this podcast slash live stream, It will be available as an archive, so you can listen into the conversation and not miss out.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Matt, for for this wonderful opportunity. Yes, it was actually Mattalamode here who broached this idea to me, and I just went along with it.
Yeah, we talked about doing something like this like a year and a half ago, but it just kind of fell through, and I thought, this is kind of a big moment. The show's concluding, so maybe we should just talk about it. So we got it done. We did it.
And it kills multiple birds with one stone. I meant to do something regarding the final batch of episodes from Gumball, and I wanted to follow up on my editorial as well. And I did intend to, as Matt said, have him on board for a live event, and that tonight pretty much satisfies the quota.
Yeah, covered a lot of ground.
And for those of you who are not in the know, Mattalamode, like I said, is a fellow Gumball reviewing contemporary. You wouldn't happen to have a link to the homepage of your review gallery, perhaps, so I can share it with everyone in the chat.
I can. You want me to post a link to the review repository?
Yeah.
Even though that sounds pretentious. Is this gonna work? You cannot submit web addresses through the chat, unfortunately.
Oh, shit.
But if you want, you could just link it through your Twitter or something like that. And
send it over to me on the direct messages on Discord.
Okay. I can do that. There you go. Also, if anybody is interested, even though Gumball is over, I am going to do some more stuff about it. I have actually been working on, for the past several months, a massive, incredibly detailed countdown of literally every single episode that they have done. So hopefully that actually gets finished, because it's been really draining to try to do. That'll probably start in maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know. But in addition to that, I'm also doing coverage of other animated shows, namely Amphibia and Final Space. So if you watch any of those, you might want to check it out.
And speaking of that, here is a catalog of Mattalamode's coverage of the amazing world of Gumball. And I will share it on the chat here.
Man, dude, we got 1 dislike. We gotta find this person. I feel really offended right now. I've worked really hard, and somebody didn't like it.
Huh.
It's probably somebody who pronounces GIF wrong.
Nah.
I don't need them anyway. The heck, man? You don't follow me on Reddit? What the heck?
Oh, I should follow you as well. I should follow you. Follow me back, dude.
I can follow. I can follow back. I just want to make sure this is balanced. This is an exchange of gratitude.
Yeah. That I do believe that'll do it for tonight. And like I said, same with me. Just because the show's over does not mean the Gumball coverage will be over. And yeah, for the time being, I will be doing a few things first before I go back to Gumball. One of them, which is projected for this coming weekend, is my review of Agretsuko Season 2. And after that will be the second part of my revised Mickey Mouse retrospective for the 90th anniversary. And the third part of my Dance Dance Revolution 20th anniversary retrospective. So look forward to those.
Pretty busy times.
Yep. So, once again, thank you so much, Matt, for this lovely lovely opportunity.
Thanks for the opportunity, man.
And I hope this hasn't freaked you out too much, because public speaking is always can always be daunting.
I think I'm over that anxiety though.
How are you feeling? How are you feeling?
I mean, I have mellowed out considerably, so that's good.
Not bad.
I don't really do stuff like this very often, and I'm not against the idea of doing it anymore, so that's a positive development, I guess.
Nice, nice. Good to hear. And does this mean we'll hear more from you in the future, or?
If you ever want to have me back on board for something, I'll probably be willing to hang out.
And the honor will be all mine.
All right.
So, that's going to do it for tonight. Until then, I am the one and only C.R. Martin, and this is the intrepid... Who are you again?
Mattalamode.
Nice. You got the cue. You got the cue. I give...
Nailed. Yeah, it's comedy's all about timing, you know?
Yep. So, this is the one and only C.R. Martin and the intrepid Mattalamode signing out. Ciao for now.
See ya.